Hello and welcome to another Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show. I am George the Howitzer Gerbo.
And I am Mike the Buzz-saw Asti.
Sports talk back with you as we can't eat lettuce anymore and we can't see anything anymore. Everything is falling apart.
Yeah.
But the sports are still here.
It smells smoky outside. It's no longer the warm weather and great atmosphere that we've been enjoying throughout the summer. And I don't know. Occasionally I enjoy Taco Bell, but probably shouldn't enjoy Taco Bell on you shouldn't do it on a regular basis anyway. So that shouldn't change for anybody. But it's very, very rare that I'll enjoy some Taco Bell rather than make tacos at home. But yeah, we're dealing with smoky atmosphere, and where there's smoke, there's fire, and that's going to be here on the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show. So prepare the smoke for the fire sports talk.
I like that. That. A reminder that the sports talk Mike mentions can be found anywhere you get your podcast. Or search Howitzer in order to find us, and also check us out as part of the Hyphen podcast group. A shout out to the Hyphen and the HPG Hyphen podcast group.com and on socials for all of our content there and all the complete library compendium of content with the Hyphen podcast group.
Yeah. You can find us everywhere you get your podcasts, and of course find us all over social media at Gerbo3, at MikeOssie11, and at Howitzer Buzz-saw for the show handle.
Are you any World Cup for you? Have you been watching any of the World Cup? Is it near its end?
I'm watching a little bit. I've been watching a little bit, but my interest definitely dissipated with Team USA being eliminated. I will admit.
Okay.
I mean, that, like most of us out there, I think that's pretty common thought process here in the good old USA. So I definitely had an interest during Team USA being there for sure. I was all about it. I was arguing the red card and all of that. I was right in there. But then after Team USA disappointed and left us, I'm there occasionally. Yeah, I'm there. I'm gonna stick with it, but it's not the same fire. I'm not as interested as when Team USA was there. I mean, are you bringing us the same interest as with Team USA in there? Is not.
I'd
love to see what the ratings are since Team USA got eliminated in this country. I feel like I've not seen as much conversation on social media. I've not had private conversations as often about it. I do feel like the interest has waned without Team USA there, at least, of course, in this country.
Yeah, we'll see Spain and Argentina in the final. I've got some soccer adjacent group chats that I'm involved in, but I'm a World Cup fan. I don't have a club or anything like that, but I do like international sporting events. So like the Olympics and like everything else. So that's why so I've been watching most, and they're on at a good time. So it's why I kind of have it on the background or whatever. So the content surrounding it has been excellent to consume all of that, and the match has been good.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. Well, yeah, we've had some legit matches for sure and some historic comebacks already, but what I said on the last show is still very, very true. You're allowed to like international competition even if you don't like the sport year round. No one should gatekeep anybody from the World Cup because, say, they're not an avid soccer fan watching the MLS or whatever other league all across the world. The international competition is a different story. The World Cup is a different story, whether it be men's or women's. Same thing with the Olympics, of course, whether it be summer or winter. You get a lot more interest. Many people do just jump aboard that, whether or not they're watching the leagues or those sports. And I know people that don't really like hockey that much, that were very much into Team USA Canada and the gold medal goal. And they were watching that and they were hooked on that. Again, having Team USA go deep and even go to the championship game and the final game in the World Baseball Classic despite not winning. That was a big deal. That was really cool. That was a galvanizing effect. You don't get that here soccer-wise with Team USA dropping out, but I check in a lot more for the World Cup and for international competition than I would normally do. Yeah, I don't follow the MLS or even Real Madrid or whatever on a regular basis. But yeah, for this, I'm checked in a little bit, but not as much since Team USA lost, for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's a segue, whether folks realize it or not.
I was going to say, I don't know if it's a segue, but it's our World Cup conversation here on this recent HBS. We had to get it in.
No, it's a segue because the year of our Lord here, 2026. World Cup, and it's here in the United States.
Right.
In 2010, there was a World Cup in South Africa.
Yeah, it has been a theme of his decisions.
And just a few days before that, LeBron James announced he was leaving in the most infamous decision of all decisions, to leave Cleveland and go and play in Miami.
Yeah, he does like doing this on World Cup years for sure. His fourth decision of his career.
That was 16 years ago, and that was the last time Spain, which is a finalist this year, was in the final, and Spain won that year.
Yeah.
4 years later, 2014, I'm coming home, LeBron James says, 2 days before the World Cup final, in which Germany beat Argentina.
Yeah.
In 2018, 4 years later, LeBron James leaves Cleveland again.
Yeah, Magic Johnson's outside the house with a jukebox waiting to get the go-ahead to go in the door. Now, you could argue that wasn't much of a decision, kind of had that in the works for a while, but it officialized during a World Cup year.
He announces he's on July 1st going to go play in Los Angeles, and France won their second World Cup title in Russia 14 days later on July 15th. 4 years after that, 2022, Qatar, nothing.
LeBron didn't change teams, right? It was, I wouldn't really defer to that as a decision, right?
So we have to, but he does it on these. So no action in Qatar. He maybe also because the World Cup was in December that year,
right?
November, December, because of the weather. But when the World Cup on a regular schedule, LeBron James makes his decision. World Cup final is Sunday. Will LeBron James make a decision before surrounding it?
Well, this one on the timeline.
It's happened too many times for it to not be linked at this point. So,
yeah, I don't know LeBron's soccer interest, but he might like competing with the world stage, and then you're going to have the argument of, does LeBron garner more attention than the World Cup? Certainly, at least now for the U.S. with Team USA no longer there.
LeBron was when he made the decision to come back to Cleveland. LeBron was in Brazil at that Germany-Argentina final.
He goes to events. He goes to events. I believe personally, I'm going to put this on LeBron like we were saying we are. I believe LeBron to be more of an occasional international big event guy. I don't think he's an avid soccer fan watching every day.
I am an occasional international
big event guy. LeBron doesn't like to admit these things. I feel like that's more LeBron. I don't feel like LeBron can give you deep analysis on the MLS on a given Wednesday.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that. Maybe he can. We'll leave that to LeBron on his Myriad of podcasts after he makes this announcement. But based on your timeline, George, you'd have to wonder, and reporters are saying this who normally are in the know, if this is more of a painstaking, legit decision for LeBron because he's dragging this out longer than normal. This is getting dragged out. You'd imagine LeBron is conscious to our world. He's not going to do this on the day of the World Cup final. So when are we getting this? You said July 1. We're recording July 16th here, and we don't have a decision. It took him until the end of June to even say he wasn't going to return to the Lakers. And now, as Rich Paul says, all the offers are in, and they've already looked at everything, and they already know the options here. They've already taken calls and got the voice memos. What are we waiting for? I guess is the question here. If LeBron was on the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show, what are we waiting for, LeBron? I imagine we're not going to once again align ourselves with the Boys and Girls Club and do that whole thing again. Obviously, that didn't go well, no matter what Spain may think of it here with their connect the dots to 16 years later. But what are we waiting for? We are beyond the timeline, even in a World Cup year. Does LeBron garner more attention than the World Cup in the country, especially with Team USA not there? All of that can be brought up, and LeBron maybe is talking about that with his camp. But LeBron has another freaking decision, and maybe his last one, his first one in a while, because, again, he just kept on staying with the Lakers. And we all knew it was kind of going to L.A. Magic Johnson kept hinting at that. Yeah, going back to Cleveland was kind of surprising, but there also were some hints that the end was near, the end was coming, the end was happening in that last finals against the Spurs after those 4 straight with the Heat. I wasn't that shocked that he left Cleveland the first time because they were banging their heads against the wall trying to win there, and they didn't give him enough of a squad. He left to go to college, as he said, and then win his championships. Again, you could argue, George, this is his first real legit decision that he really maybe doesn't know and has to think about it. And now is extending this to the longest timeline and maybe going to make the decision after the World Cup final. Is that, without being in LeBron's head, is that not fair based on what we know, what we're hearing, and what the insiders of all insiders here, the Shams, the Brian Windhurst, who's literally been covering LeBron since before he entered the NBA in high school, he's going on shows saying, I don't know, and I'm not lying to you. There's no one who's been around LeBron longer. Is that where we are? I mean, we could have this decision any day now, but this feels like the most legit decision to the sense of the term for LeBron.
Year 24.
Yeah,
for
which is nuts already.
Number 23.
I imagine you didn't think we'd be here with a decision 2026 when he was making his decision in 2010.
Not only that, I probably didn't think we'd be here in 2003 when he was drafted. That's the crazy part. Not that he wasn't going to have a long career, but
this is beyond. Yeah.
41 years old.
And at this level where he's coveted and he's the top free agent, even though there's a lot more trades today in the NBA. Yeah.
Just shy of 21 points a game, 7.2 assists and 6.1 rebounds. Average last season, 51.5% shooting.
Yeah, 51.5% shooting is the key there. I mean, the numbers are down because he was the number 3 option, but 51%. How many number 3 options are averaging 27 points and 51%? That, I mean, and again, over 40 years old, year 24. We're not going to have the GOAT debate here on this show right now. Anyone can do it any day and we can do it later. Yeah. But what he's doing at this age is unprecedented. And there's nobody, George, I can definitively say this before we get more into this. There's nobody in any sport at any level ever who has been this good at this age with this long of a career and as consistent. I'm not saying he's necessarily the GOAT, meaning the best in your peak or however you want to equate it, or even most accomplished, etc. But again, in terms of consistency and doing it at this age, year 24, all of that, there's nobody like this. I mean, Brady's the only other debate, is really the only possible debate. Tiger Woods obviously had his dip out towards the end, whether it be on or off the course. Gordie Howe was a shell of his former self towards the end, even though he played a really, really long time. Crosby might keep on playing, and he's still great, but he's no longer the best in the game. He had his lowest point total in years this past year, didn't even lead his team in goals, despite, again, being great. LeBron is another level from even that. I mean, we've seen Ovechkin wane a little bit, even though he's obviously still great just for modern examples. And if you want to go to the World Cup again, Messi. But I don't even know Messi to what LeBron's doing at this age. 24 years in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unprecedented. And we're never going to see this again where somebody year 24 is making a free agency decision that the entire country cares about like this. No.
I want to break this into 3 categories. We'll save the Cavaliers and the Heat, 2 of his prior employers, for a few moments. But the
prior employers, yes, he was employed there. Correct.
I was gonna say suitors, but employers is what came out.
You could, you could argue he was running the show, but he was employed.
Yeah, fair enough. Maybe not in Miami, but anyway,
he was employed there. Yeah,
yeah. These 4 teams that have been come about and discussed: Philadelphia, Denver, Golden State, Minnesota. Nuggets, of course, they've got certain positives to each. The 76ers are in the midst of an overhaul with new franchise president, former Mountaineer Mike Gansey, calling the shots there after Morey's ouster.
LeBron connection. He was there, even though he was not at the top position.
Yeah, and Mike was in the system, leading the Canton Charge, their Cleveland's G League team. Prior to his front office and being in the front office in Cleveland. Of course, in Denver, you get the chance to play with Nikola Jokic, which would be amazing. Of course, in Golden State, you get the chance to play with Stephen Curry, which LeBron did at the Paris Olympics in 24 when the United States won the gold medal. The Timberwolves, a younger team with Anthony Edwards, and one that's kind of, I'll say, hit their ceiling in terms of playoffs so far. And obviously a signing like James could push them a little bit deeper. in those playoffs.
And you bring Ball in. I mean, they already made some moves to be different than they've been. So if you do add LeBron, this would be a very different Wolves team than the teams that have kind of hit their ceiling. Yeah.
The two that are kind of interesting, at least to me, of those four, Golden State, I've been trying to figure out what they're going to do with Draymond Green in getting him re-signed. Jimmy Butler is still going to be injured for, presumably the first half of the season after ACL last year. And then add on to that the aforementioned 76ers, where here we are with the Sixers again, where these other teams in the Eastern Conference have done the process better than them in some regards. Boston for a hot minute bypassed them and won a title. The Knicks, of course, this year bypassed them and won a title. And here's Toronto, kind of the dagger of that, the poster of the process era is Toronto beating Philadelphia in with that Kawhi Leonard shot bouncing off the rim and everything all those years ago when Toronto won their lone world championship. So Philadelphia and Golden State are kind of like the most tantalizing of those two options, I think, Mike. But your thoughts on those teams LeBron hasn't played for, perhaps getting a fresh start somewhere where he's never been.
So if you even want to separate those in buckets of legit or not, even though they're making pitches and in the conversation and maybe they have a shot, I don't buy Minnesota as really having a shot to bring LeBron in. I know they bring in LaMelo Ball. Anthony Edwards is a beast. They've been to the conference finals back-to-back years. The franchise has never been to the NBA finals. So you could make an argument, George, that the Anthony Edwards run is actually the best in franchise history over Kevin Durant or over Kevin Garnett. You could argue that this run is the best in Timberwolves history over what happened in the early 2000s with Kevin Garnett, who had to leave to go to Boston and win his championship. But it does feel like they kind of are knocking at the door and yet can't kick it down. They regressed this past season. They weren't as much of a contender, even though they got in the playoffs and were able to win a series. They did not get back to the conference finals. Anthony Edwards is great and is still very, very young. The sky is still the limit there, but they're also kind of a cheap organization.
Yeah.
They end up letting Karl-Anthony Towns walk for money reasons, really. He goes and wins a title and steps up his game with New York. So you kind of got a feel for Anthony Edwards, too. He's such a competitor and so great, but he wants to win. And are they really going to get there? They have Randall gone, too. I like the fit with Ball. I do think they can be a competitive team. I don't think they're going to go ahead and win the title, but I think it can be a competitive team. LeBron, basketball-wise, would be very interesting there. I do think LeBron and Anthony Edwards on the court, basketball-wise, would be really intriguing to watch. I think LeBron would like playing with Anthony Edwards. I think Ball, whom makes a lot of mental mistakes, would probably annoy LeBron, but he also is very entertaining, and LeBron might like maybe molding him into a better player. I think basketball-wise, it could be cool, but in all reality, LeBron freaking James on the Mount Rushmore of the sport, who's very conscious of his place in history and very obsessed about his brand, is not going to Minnesota. He's not going to play for the Minnesota Timberwolves that have never been to the NBA Finals. Yes, doing it there would be great for his legacy. He likes Anthony Edwards. I don't see it. I don't think they're really legit in terms of having a shot to get him, even though it's intriguing to talk about. And yes, they've made a pitch and been reported on, so we can bring it up here. I think on a higher degree, but still in the bucket of I don't see it happening, would be the Denver Nuggets. It would be awesome to another level of Anthony Edwards and LeBron on the court to see LeBron with the Joker. And if there's ever a chance that they're going to kind of mend a rumored rough relationship there have been some subtle comments that have been made either from the Joker to even reporters about Nikola Jokic maybe being a little unhappy there. Obviously, Mike Malone no longer the coach. That was his guy. They're still a playoff team. They're still a contender. He's still an MVP candidate every single season, but he only has a couple more years left on his deal. I don't think he's a guy that's going to just go team to team, but there's rumors maybe that he's not fully unhappy. And honestly, George, as that team stands as is, yeah, they won a championship, but since then, they've really hit a ceiling too. I don't see them winning the championship. I don't see them getting beyond a conference finals. I don't even know if I see them getting there next year. Again, Jokic's going to be an MVP candidate and have double doubles, but that seemingly is the ceiling for them of the second round, maybe the third, and no more. That kind of is their life. And while, again, it'd be cool to see LeBron James and the Joker and their legends coming together, and I think LeBron basketball-wise would salivate on that. You'd have him with somebody that's really unstoppable in the game today, that's younger, that is still in his prime. That would be great. I can't see LeBron James going to the freaking Denver freaking Nuggets. I can't see it.
No.
I'm not buying it. Minnesota and the Nuggets for me are in the same bucket. It'd be cool to watch. It'd be a video game type of atmosphere. It's almost fantasy basketball in a way for fans. It really is a video game that you want to put a custom player together or LeBron James on the team that's not really reality. Basketball-wise, I could see a fit. I don't think he's going to those two teams. Then you throw in the Golden State Warriors, who he's never played for but has a weird connection, of course, of meeting in the NBA Finals so many years in a row, and Steph Curry and all of that. And there's more emotions to this that I'll get into in a moment with Cleveland fans on where they would prefer him to go, and this likely being the least favorable destination for a Cleveland fan outside of joining the Cavs. But George, while I definitely think Golden State is way more legitimate and that LeBron is seriously considering them, I could see it happening. Knowing LeBron, it maybe would make sense to connect the dots on his story. I could see all of this in his mind. Him and Steph would be perfect basketball fit-wise. It might be great in that sense, and I could see LeBron doing it. I could see him being convinced in the meeting with Kerr and with Draymond Green taking less and opening up his option to make this happen, and him and LeBron are friends, and he'd welcome him in, and Steph Curry is saying it on Good Morning America that he wants him, and they're a winning organization. I could see all of that in LeBron being convinced. However, basketball-wise, I don't see, even with LeBron, them any better off than the Timberwolves or Nuggets would be with LeBron on the court. They would be a very old team. LeBron is not a shooter despite having a great field goal percentage. He's not your quintessential shooter like Steph Curry is. You need to surround him with shooters. You obviously surround him with Steph, but who else? Do you have defense there? LeBron's no longer playing defense. Steph's never played defense. Draymond Green is a shell of his former self, would basically have to do everything defensively. It would just be him defensively. It would be just him rebounding-wise. They're not nearly as deep as they were years ago, which is why they're not really a contender anymore. Jimmy Butler, who could do a lot of the dirty work and score points, is hurt and going to miss most of the season, and we don't know what we're getting from him. So, George, I don't think he'll ever go to Minnesota or Denver. I don't see those as legit just on LeBron's mindset, even though they're fun basketball options. I could argue that Golden State is no better of a basketball team with LeBron than the Timberwolves or Nuggets would be, even though he's much more likely to go there because they're the freaking Warriors. They're a recent dynasty, Steph Curry and all of that, and the weird connection of playing them so many years. And then also in a bucket like the Warriors of legit and a possible option would be the 76ers. It would be one that destination that he's never played for before. It'd be an Eastern Conference team, kind of a quasi-rival of the Cavs. It would be like he'd be going against the Cavs or the Heat to go ahead and try to win there. That would be a bit odd, but Philadelphia and LeBron does seem like an odd fit, but on the court, he'd be able to be a third or fourth option again. If Joel Embiid is healthy, he can get the rebounds. Tyrese Maxey is a budding star that can do everything imaginable on the court. BJ Epscombe is a great young player that LeBron can make even better. And Jaylen freaking Brown, whom the Boston Celtics basically gave away because of whatever's going on there with the relationship or whatever else Brad Stevens wants to try to argue and put lipstick on the pig of that trade. It's a benefit for the Sixers. You can say he's not great analytically. The man scores a lot. He's a two-way player that can play defense. That's your defender. If you're telling me the best defender out of any of these teams, who is that guy? Jaylen Brown's a better defender now than Draymond Green is at this point in his career, a better overall player for sure. He was top 6 in the MVP voting this past season, getting the Celtics the 2 seed, even though he wasn't great in the playoffs without Jason Tatum there most of the season. So I think LeBron would love playing with Jaylen Brown. I think he'd be motivated to even try to help Joel Embiid get to the finals finally. He likes him from the Olympic run. All those young players he would like playing with. If you're marrying on the court with the best possible opportunity to win another championship and get ring number 5 and maybe even do something historic again, because the Sixers haven't been to the finals since Iverson in 2001, haven't won the title since 83, even before Charles Barkley. Then I could see LeBron maybe thinking, if I do this, that'll be another feather in my cap, even though I won't get to 6. Maybe that could be considered, even though he'd have to move coast and it'd be a bit odd in Philadelphia. So if I had to rank it out of those 4 before we get to the teams he's played with, I would say I could see LeBron most likely to the Sixers, because he could legitimately win there and they're the best basketball team in a wide open Eastern Conference with him. Maybe then the Warriors, maybe a close second, maybe tied, because he just maybe would want to play with Steph and they're the freaking Warriors and they're the connection there. And then, of course, Minnesota and Denver. I'll go Denver above Minnesota, but Minnesota and Denver in this bucket of cool basketball fit, but it's not really going to happen. Keep on dreaming. It's almost cool you got to be part of the conversation in the meeting. Like, that's something. You know what it almost is, George? I'll give you a comparison here. We both covered college sports. You know what it is for Minnesota and Denver? If you're a team that's on the graphic for a top recruit, but you didn't really have a shot to get him, but he's willing to put you on the graphic of his Final Four, and you can say you're in the running and you get promoted and talked about nationally because you're on the graphic and you're on the McAfee show on the graphic, but you don't get him, that's Minnesota and Denver. They're on the graphic.
Yeah.
They're talked about nationally. They made a pitch. LeBron's willing to discuss you and have a conversation with you. That's better than, say, where Memphis is right now. Of course, LeBron doesn't even want to stay in hotels there. Yeah. He hates that city, but he's not going to play for your basketball team. He's not gonna sign that NIL deal, which is really what this is, because LeBron's gonna go for a league minimum or for a mid-level exception. Like, that's the weirdness too. This isn't, you don't have to clear space for a mega deal. LeBron's gonna go for $15 million or something. This is really NIL money for him. But those two teams would be cool. He's not going to go there. For me, I'd be really, really shocked. Golden State and then Philadelphia. Which one out of Golden State and Philadelphia for you? Which one would be a better fit in terms of giving LeBron the best chance to win? Assuming that's part of the equation here. He's admitted other things might be part of the equation. But if he wants a 5th ring out of just Philadelphia and Golden State right now, which one gives him a better shot?
I'll go more like tactical, lay of the landscape and say Philadelphia. Only for
the East is easier to get through.
Okay, Warriors are in, and instead of being in the play-in there, we'll give them home court. We'll give them a 4
maybe
seed.
They get a 4 or 5 or
right.
6.
We'll give
I don't even know
if
a 4 seed, but they get out of the play-in. Sure,
we'll give them a 4 or 5. Oklahoma City, the Spurs.
They're not better than those teams, even with LeBron.
The Nuggets, gauntlet thing where.
They could still lose to the Joker even if LeBron's against him.
Exactly.
He could have a 40-20 game.
In the East, we saw a team like Detroit be vulnerable early on in the playoffs, and Detroit was a top 4 seed and everything. I kind of like the.
Will the Knicks do it again? Is Kawhi going to do it with Toronto again? Those are the favorites right now. I would say the Knicks and Toronto are probably the favorites in the East right now.
No, there's opportunities for that 3 through 5 seeded group in the East to have an impact next season, and
or even getting through without a top seed. The Knicks were a 3 seed.
Yeah, for his legacy, something that I think he thinks about. All those other teams. Yeah. All those other teams we mentioned, sans, like you said about Minnesota, we'll leave them kind of on the fringe there. Denver's got their title with Jokic. The Warriors have their titles, right? Philadelphia would be a chance to.
Yeah, getting a title with Jokic, people would still say he did it without you first.
Yeah.
Even if it's been years, and obviously the Warriors have won with without him and with KD and without KD, and the whole stain of KD that they won before you and after you would be on LeBron then, because Steph's won with KD without KD.
If he goes to Philadelphia and does it after these multiple cycles,
that would be
finals with AI process, undo the process, Morey, no Morey, all the people they've churned through, still standing there as Joel Embiid after all these years. to do it with Embiid, who's kind of been loyal to the game here a little bit in Philadelphia.
Embiid would lose credit on the ring, though. That's who would lose credit.
Sure, that's fair. Like, he couldn't do it himself. Yeah, but I mean,
not unless you're Jaylen Brown there and LeBron and Maxey. I think Embiid is getting close to a charity ring level here.
I mean, that might be beneficial for him, you know.
But he got a charity gold medal in a country that he wasn't born in. But
yes, yeah, the United States.
No, I think because obviously the Knicks drought went down and they hadn't won since '73 before winning this year. We've had a lot of sports droughts and curses, etc., go down over the past 25 years. Even U.S. gold medal on the Olympic stage in hockey that we mentioned at the top of the show. George, we're running out of them. I mean, some certainly exist, but on just the pro sport level, we're kind of running out. The Philadelphia 76ers since '83 and no final since '01, with all the star players. Going through Barkley and not getting it for him, going through AI, Joel Embiid not even getting to the conference finals. Yeah, I think getting even the Sixers to the finals, let alone winning a title, would be one of the few kind of quasi-Knicks historic. The whole country would be, wow, this franchise that's been around would do this. That would be, I mean, that would be one of those droughts to take down. If you're going to win a championship, there's nothing that would ever surpass winning Cleveland's first major title in the city since '64 in 2016 with a 3-1 comeback. There is no title LeBron could win, even if he freaking would win one with the Timberwolves, that would ever be more historic than that title for the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2016.
Yeah.
But beyond that, if he would win with the Sixers next year, I would actually argue it's the second most historic title that he would then have. I mean, that over with the Lakers in the bubble, and certainly over the Heat when he was on a stacked team with Hall of Famers.
Let's
for sure
look at and pivot from that bucket and go to the Heat, where Miami can give him the most. Not that money necessarily has been a concern as part of this for LeBron. A concern, but not like the most.
Because the most is not near what he's been making.
They can give him. They're $10.5 million below the hard cap, the first apron, as the league calls it. He could sign in like the $7 to $8 million range. And they've got Miami still has 2 roster spots. Of course, they finally landed the whale that Pat Riley has been seeking for the last 7 off seasons. It feels like
they landed the plane, as Pat Riley put it.
Yeah, and it's Giannis Antetokounmpo. That we go back to defense, like you said. There's defense. Put Giannis in
Bam
there
and Giannis
next to Bam, who's incredible.
LeBron doesn't have to even go to the other side. There is no defense they would worry about from LeBron on the Heat for sure.
Perhaps scoring could be an issue, give or take.
See, that's what I was going to give you. Yes, they could pay him the most, but here was what I would be wondering.
It looks great on the marquee, right? But then it's like, well, who's going to score these points?
That's the problem.
Giannis got to go for 50 every night, and LeBron's got to go for 25. So,
like, they could pay him the most if they bring in LeBron and give him the most, meaning the rest of their cap. Who's going to shoot on the team then? They have no shooters. No. The only shooter they had, they traded to Milwaukee. Tyler Hero, who got punched by Bam in the Summer League, is also in Milwaukee. So it'd be great if you had Tyler Hero on a team with LeBron. That would be fantastic if you put him on the team with all those guys. But with Tyler Hero gone, who is there? They would literally, George, in your scenario of giving LeBron the most money to lure him back to Miami, they'd have to have the rest of the team, including the bench and shooters, of course, just the premier bodies, not just in general, would have to be pure league minimum. They would have to go league minimum with important players. I mean, if you look at LeBron's title years, George, you bring in Ray Allen at the end of his career, obviously one of the best shooters of all time. You have Mike Miller, one of the best snipers of a generation. You have, Rondo's a solid shooter, and he was in the point guard on that team with the Lakers that won a championship. And there are other shooters there, of course. And you go back to Cleveland. I mean, there were definitely shooters on that Cavs team when they were healthy. Kyrie Irving's one of the most efficient shooters ever from the point position, who definitely could shoot the rock on that Cavs team that was in 2016. where's that guy on Miami? Yes, you'd have 3 likely future Hall of Famers, assuming Bam gets there with his international play and his 80-plus points and all of that. He's probably getting there. Giannis is a legend, and LeBron's a Mount Rushmore player. They would love playing it. Again, like Golden State, I could see Pat Riley and those 2 guys convincing LeBron in a meeting. I could see the voice memos that were sent very intriguing to him. And I could see LeBron thinking, I already went back to Cleveland once. Clearly, Pat Riley was a bit in his feelings when I left the first time. I did go to Miami and do college. Wouldn't it be cool if you kind of could do college all over again before your professional life's over and kind of go to college one more time? Like, George, wouldn't it be cool if you could cap off before you retire when you're 60 or whatever? One more year, we do the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show full-time at UND2. Like, that would kind of be LeBron's thinking. Let's do that one more time. I already won there. He might even be thinking, George, you mentioned that he's a history buff. Pat Riley might even dangle over him. You had 4 years, MVPs, finals, but you left me. I'm pissed. You want your jersey retired? You come back. Like, Pat Riley could get, I mean, he's a gangster. You don't know what he could be saying to LeBron out there. He might say, I'm not raising it. I'm not raising number 6 for 4 years. You got to come back to me. Then I'll do it. And LeBron might, acquiesce because Pat Riley is a freaking mob boss with the heat of the NBA. But I don't see how the championship's happening. Even in the Eastern Conference, it's wide open with LeBron on the Heat. Give me this, George. Say he goes to the Heat. Say it's LeBron, Bam, Giannis, whoever else becomes the shooters on that team. We'll go down the line of contenders. Would the Heat with LeBron be better or worse than the Knicks? I mean, I got to say fairly worse. The Knicks just won the title.
Yeah.
They're deeper.
Worse. Yeah, worse.
Okay. Would the Knicks, would the Heat with LeBron be better or worse? Remember, there's no shooting there. Yeah. Would the Heat with LeBron be better or worse than Kawhi, assuming the trade happens and he ends up on the Raptors, because right now it's on a pause?
I'd say they're about the same level as Toronto. Toronto's interesting.
Okay, well, that's 3 Hall of Famers to 1, and you're saying the same level. The shooting is a problem.
That's what I'm worried about.
Would you say that LeBron on the Heat with no shooting and 2 other Hall of Famers would have a better or worse team than the Sixers without LeBron? But as is, Embiid, Maxey, Edgecombe, and Jaylen Brown.
Sixers got better shooters.
I still think the Sixers are a better team, and they're deeper. They can churn through a lineup. Even if Embiid gets hurt, I would still say they're better.
Yeah.
If you go down to the Pacers with Halliburton coming back healthy, do they get back?
Yeah, I was about. Yeah, they slot in somewhere there, like the current Cavaliers,
Orlando, Detroit
Pistons,
with Cade Cunningham.
Yeah,
they haven't added a partner for Cade Cunningham yet. He's still the Lone Ranger.
The most prominent, and there could be more, in theory, moves that Riley can make. The most prominent members of what would be a surrounding cast around LeBron, Giannis, and Bam are Bobby Portis, Andrew Wiggins, who's bounced around the league and probably didn't reach the ceiling that many thought he would have when he came out of Kansas.
Sure.
Nikola Jovic and Tim Hardaway Jr. Like, that
would be a cool connect the dots, though, because with LeBron, because Wiggins got bounced to make LeBron win the title the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe LeBron. Again, I don't see. Now, of course, other moves have to happen. And you know what maybe could happen that would be better basketball-wise? LeBron may say, I want to go back to Miami, but I don't want what all you have left financially. And I want you to give me the most money. We need to leave some money to get shooters there. If it's not about money, like Rich Paul has said, maybe he takes the minimum with Miami and lets them go bring shooters in. They don't have any, as we're talking. Like, you need shooters with LeBron James. You just do. I just don't see how. I mean, I actually don't even know if they're as high as you're saying. I would say right now you put LeBron on the Heat.
Yeah.
I know there's only 1 star there, but maybe Jalen Durham keeps on going. I could still argue Detroit being better. They got chemistry. They just put it together for a year. Maybe they had to lose 1 year to get going. I think Orlando's still freaking pesky. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'll give you a hot take. I don't know if Miami's guaranteed to not be in the play-in with LeBron, unless there's legit shooters there.
It feels very similar.
You put shooters there, they can win the title. I just don't see shooters that are coming.
It feels very similar to the situation that he just left, almost, right? With the Lakers. And you could argue
but
that
less shooting, but similar.
And Austin Reeves being a better, fourth player or whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, the Lakers had no defense and a little shooting, and the Heat have defense, and that's almost what they got. They got defense, rebounding, and some scoring if you drive the lane. I just don't see how. Before we get to Cleveland, though, forget basketball, because I think we would, if I'll do this before we get to Cleveland. If I'm ranking basketball wise the best team on the court, do you agree Philadelphia is the best, even including Cleveland? Philadelphia is the best team on the court with LeBron, aside from the storyline.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second best team on the court, is that Miami or Golden State? Golden State's old.
It's like, do you weight Stephen Curry heavier than Giannis, basically?
And you got to weight health. I mean, you could argue they both have been injury prone recently.
And like the surrounding pieces besides Steph.
I'm almost tempted to maybe go a little Miami, because Draymond is not.
They're older, right? Yeah.
But like so the big three of Draymond, Steph, and LeBron is a worse big three than Bam, Giannis, and LeBron.
Yes. Yes.
So then it's the rest of the team. And if Butler's hurt and basically can't play, then who are you relying on Golden State to be better bench-wise than Miami and whatever the hell they get, assuming they get something? I don't know. That's a toss-up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you so you have Golden State?
I would take the two younger guys in Bam and Giannis
basketball wise,
over Steph and Draymond.
Just basketball wise,
right?
So then here's what we got to do, because Cleveland, obviously, that's the topic, that's the conversation. We'll get to them in a moment. Storyline wise, taking the Cavs out of it, because 3 runs with Cleveland and going back home and finishing there with obviously the best overall story. Everybody knows that. Storyline wise, we're journalists. Storyline wise, forget basketball. If you're having to cover this as a reporter and you're going to get ready to maybe put this in a documentary someday, storyline wise, separate from Cleveland, what would be the best storyline?
I mean, Miami is the second, right? Like,
I don't know if that's true. Is that,
because there's
storyline wise, not basketball, just storyline wise.
No, I
actually think storyline wise is Golden State. That's the rival that he played for 4 straight years in the finals. Cleveland fans would potentially burn a jersey again. They'd be so mad. That would be the franchise a lot of Cleveland fans do not want him to ever go to. They think they're rivals because of the past finals, even though they're really not. It would put George, in a way, the national media conversation, LeBron would be joining the guy that beat him to try to win again. If LeBron got 5, he would give Steph another one. I think that would be a great storyline. You could make an argument, and this is how I would write it. Maybe it's my role here and what I would do. Maybe George didn't get his brain this way. Here, I'll simply tell you why I think it's the best storyline, maybe even including Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
You could write it as LeBron ends his career as a heel. And it's the only spot you could write it that way.
The Miami thing is interesting.
I don't think he'd even be a heel there, because he's already gone there and screwed him once. I don't think he'd be a heel there.
Well, the Miami thing is interesting to me because of like what we've heard in the aftermath of it and how it ended, right?
Right.
So, Pat Riley dumps his rings on the table in from his days with the Knicks and the Lakers and everything like that in a bid to lure him to Miami. He wins his first championships in Miami there.
After blowing it and losing in the finals the first year, which is arguably the worst moment of his whole career.
Yes.
Yeah.
He gets they get all the heat, rightfully so, as a heel then, with the not one, the not two from the introductory press conference.
Yeah, you could argue they underachieved despite 2 rings.
With Bosch and Wade there at the then peak of their height of their careers.
Yeah.
And then just the stuff you hear about the way that for, again, we mentioned the timeline at the top, short 4 years, felt very, very fast 4 years.
Yeah.
And the way that it ended with, we're hearing that, the story about like ice cream on the airplane and they wouldn't let LeBron have ice, or usually had ice cream or whatever on the Heat plane. And went to ask, there's kind of those like little needle things that Pat
Riley's in charge, right?
Hey, I'm, running the show here. I'm almost curious just to see how they and Pat's taken a little bit of a step back.
This is part of what I think could persuade him. LeBron could think I already made it right in Cleveland. I need to make it right in Miami before I end my career. He could think that.
I'm just interested to see the personalities of those two. Riley, of course, nearing the end of his career in terms of the front office and everything.
You would think so, but he seems fresh as a daisy at the press conference of Giannis, and he just brought Giannis. He looks pretty rearing to go at what 70-something. He got to be up there.
Yeah. Andy Ellisberg, who runs that front office. Riley's 81.
81, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
George, 81. He looks like he's 67.
That's
if you
good Italian genes. What do you want? Like,
well, my grandfather looked about 10 years younger than he was. He lived to be 99.
Your grandfather was 100 essentially, and I could have guessed he was like 75. So
right. I did the guess with people that would meet him for the first time, and they always would undershoot him. I just don't think Pat Riley's retiring tomorrow based on bringing Giannis in. Although that's a coup. If he wants to bring LeBron back and then walk off, sure. But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
So it's interesting to me for that point. Like not that there's bad blood there, but there was enough of like things that came out.
Well, this is also different now.
Years after
when he went there the first time, and of course Eric Spoelstra got elevated to be the head coach then. But at that time, nobody knew who Eric Spoelstra was.
That was a big deal too.
That was
like,
a conversation.
What are they doing this video coordinator as the coach? Yeah.
Right. Well, that was a conversation that was in reports. LeBron never wanted to admit this, but there were reports and rumors that Dwayne Wade has pretty much admitted now that he's retired that there was a secret meeting between the big three of, do we want to force him out or do we want to let him be a coach? And then Pat Riley had to go to them, which is part of your point of Pat Riley early on made it clear, I'm in charge here. You signed in the dotted line, and he went to them and said, you can discuss this all day. He's my guy. He's coaching the team. You're on the team. Get ready to play for him. They went to 4 finals. They won 2 titles. And to Spoelstra's credit, he's been to 2 finals since then on his own, despite not winning a title. LeBron, of course, has won twice since they departed. Ironically, if you want to make it right again, LeBron robbed Spoelstra of maybe a championship by beating the Heat in the NBA Finals with the Lakers on a team that wasn't supposed to be there as a later seed. And Spoelstra's now has immersed himself as a future Hall of Famer. He's coaching Team USA. Yeah. Going to the Heat now would be where Spoelstra's running the show. He's going to be the next guy running the ship after Pat Riley whenever he's done coaching. This would be different dynamic for LeBron. He would go in there where he wouldn't have all the cachet. He couldn't throw his weight around to Spoelstra, who would basically be able to say, I'm going to the Hall of Fame too. It'd be a very different dynamic to what it was when they were bringing in LeBron as the best player in the game with guys that had yet to really ascend besides Dwayne Wade. It would be a very different dynamic now that would be a cool story to cover.
And also like him going somewhere not only with like an actual stable coaching situation, but to somewhere that like he not only stable, guy been there for years, but he played under the guy, right? Cleveland,
best coach of his career, you could argue, in terms of Hall of Fame stature.
Cleveland 07, when they go to the finals, ironically, it's Mike Brown who finally gets his ring with the Knicks as the head man. We go through the whole David Blatt thing in Cleveland, who Dan Gilbert hired out of Israel, out of a team in Israel.
Before LeBron. He hired him before LeBron.
And then we come to the eventual, all right, we know this ain't going to work. And then Ty Lue, and then Lakers.
After going to a finals with David Blatt,
going to the finals with David,
yeah. And then Frank Vogel wins the freaking championship, who's now an assistant with the Warriors. By the way,
you won 2000. Yeah,
I don't know if that's a thing. Frank Vogel, by the way, with the Warriors, if that's going to be an issue, because they didn't part ways great either. That's a thing. Like LeBron has, obviously, everyone wants LeBron, but to what you're even saying as well.
He could go into an actual stable coaching situation, you know.
Yeah, and Kerr would be that with the Warriors. But LeBron has some weird rift relationships that he's kind of left in the wake of his departures as well, that he would have to have some meetings with, like, hey, are we going to have a weird text message? Like that. I mean, but that would be the peak of that with Miami. I would imagine, George, as we're speaking here on July 16th, and this decision could happen any day now. This could no longer be evergreen by the time we publish this.
It is likely that that's how it goes around here.
Right. But what I'm trying to get at is, because we have more topics to discuss as well, but what I'm trying to get at, I would imagine that before the Giannis presser, since all the offers are apparently in, Pat Riley has already had the conversation with LeBron of, you know, I'll swallow my pride if you swallow yours. Let's go end this the right way. I imagine that's already done. Pat Riley is a guy that wants stars. He knows in the NBA you win with stars. from doing it with Showtime, with the Showtime Lakers and Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, to Patrick Ewing with the Knicks, to when he got to Miami to kind of run things and be the coach as well. He brought in Alonzo Mourning and literally said, I got to have a star here. And then he brought in Shaq and Dwayne Wade, and Dwayne Wade wasn't enough. I got to get Shaq. And then Jimmy Butler, and now Giannis. He's been star hunting his whole career. He's like figured out what some others haven't figured out, that forget the rest of the roster. Give me the best players at the top and we'll just figure it out, and he'll win championships. And that maybe is what I'll argue, that if we got the 3 best, we'll figure out the rest, even if there's no shooters here. So that is the thing. The only issue is if LeBron's going to a place for happiness, ending it the right way with Miami, and he won there before, and getting his jersey retired and mending with Pat Riley might make him happy. I could see, George, him not being the happiest during the season, because he's not going to be putting anybody he wants on the plane. Like, they could get together and have a meeting of the minds, but Pat Riley's not changing at 81. It's his team. It's his city. Like, he's still running it. He's the face of the franchise as an 81-year-old executive. He's the face of the franchise, you could argue. Not even Giannis or Bam, it's him. So he's still in charge. Whereas if he goes to Cleveland and goes home, LeBron's running it. If he goes to Golden State, it's Steph's team, but they would give LeBron a lot of autonomy. Obviously, that would be the case with Minnesota or Denver. And even in Philly, I think all those young players would say, LeBron, you're our God, that we grew up loving you. We're just going to follow your lead. I don't know if it's follow your lead, if it's Miami and LeBron. Pat Riley would be in the meeting saying, I did it differently, LeBron, and I have more titles than you. Like, that would be a weird thing. Like, do you want to go through that again if you're LeBron? Like, it's almost like, think of it, George. Like, would you want to, I don't know, would you want to end your career at UND2 if you had to do it under, say, the same leadership that you left in terms of management at the top? Maybe some chaos there. It's better now, of course. Would you want to, if you're LeBron, do you want to do that again? So that's his thinking.
Sure.
But to the team that we have to discuss here before we move on, is Cleveland, out of everything we've been talking about and everyone's been talking about, is this all much ado about nothing, and he just has to freaking go back to Cleveland a third time and end it there? They also are a contender, even though they're not guaranteed anything. There's question marks there like there is anywhere else. He would be happy. He'd run the show. He'd be back home. His wife wants to be there. He would make the fans happy. He'd get a statue. Nobody would burn any jerseys. He would end as a baby face. Even if he doesn't win a title, he did it once, so they would appreciate him. Does he just have to do Cleveland? Is this just much ado about nothing and he has to go to Cleveland? Or do you actually not want to see him in Cleveland a third time?
I personally don't want to see him in Cleveland because, like, we authored the conclusion to the Cleveland story, right?
They're messing it up, though, because they're pursuing him again.
I know, in so many different ways. Like, we had Dan Gilbert writing in Comic Sans about how much he hated him, the whole Billboard shit, like, just everything was so petty, and never thought, and you mentioned burning the jerseys and all that, like, never thought it was going to come back from that, right?
Yeah.
And sure
he
enough,
swallowed his pride and did it for the people there.
Sure enough, he wins the title. And then just like when he departs, it's just like, okay, that was a nice conclusion. Bye. Like it was just like a nice, he can always come
and
home.
they weren't even mad to see him with the Lakers. The fans weren't mad. It was fine. Right.
The weird intrigue is, as we've talked about, like, the competitive nature of things, perhaps of all these teams, Cleveland's kind of set up to be in the right position on the court. Do
you think they're the best team, even better than Philly?
Well,
if you add LeBron?
If we add
Donovan Mitchell's back,
as we talked about, hey, it's just Giannis and Bam and LeBron and nobody can shoot. Cleveland was the number 1 team in the East 2 years ago in the playoffs. They were once again a high seed this past year. Couldn't obviously made it to the conference final. Obviously couldn't lay a finger on the Knicks. Nobody could lay a finger on the Knicks except the Pistons. Ironically,
I mean, if you put LeBron there, did they win a game or two? I mean, I don't know if they win that series.
Well, so like if you bring James Harden back, a guy he played with in Dennis Schroeder, Donovan Mitchell, we already mentioned, Evan Mobley. It's a better.
They're a deeper team. The only team.
It's a better rounded. It's not top heavy on defense, but it's a better rounded roster. And maybe he could be the guy that gets James Harden to focus one more time at the end of his career. grasping.
The only argument is I do think Philadelphia is still a deeper and a better team on paper. On paper.
On paper, sure. Yeah.
But Cleveland would be Cleveland's definitely a better roster in the Eastern Conference than Golden State is. He may like the Steph Curry thing, but if Steph or Draymond gets hurt and LeBron's staying in there healthy, they're done. They're the Lakers again.
Golden State still feels far, and they've looked far, LeBron or no LeBron, right? In the past, 2 years.
You put Steph and LeBron in the Eastern Conference, maybe, but they're in the West.
Yeah.
And again, Oklahoma City and San Antonio could play in the conference finals for the next 3 years in a row, and nobody would be shocked if that's the result. But in the Eastern Conference, it is wide open. Do I predict the Knicks to win the title back-to-back years? No, even though they're a deep team, and they certainly could, and Jalen Brunson and Towns, and you lose Mitchell Robinson, but they're still very, very good, and they certainly are a contender, and Kawhi makes the Raptors better. But outside of those two, the Celtics, basically, they won't admit this. They're pretty much punting the year. Like, they're not going to be a contender. Sorry, Joe Mazzulla. Paul George is great, but he's not. He's at the end. He's done. They match the money, and now there's no way they're better now than they were a year ago. I don't know if you watched the Brad Stevens presser where he tried to argue they might be better. I don't know what he's talking about. Like, I'm not an idiot. So they don't want to admit personal issues. They don't want to disrespect Jaylen Brown publicly. They're not better. You're taking some teams away. Detroit still doesn't have a co-star for Cade Cunningham. They're probably still not yet there. It's open in the East. If you put LeBron on the Cavaliers and they go to the finals, maybe they don't win the title, but I wouldn't be shocked. We've talked about this all the time on these shows. It's the same thing with dragging the Spurs because they didn't look great in the finals. They got there with a 22-year-old. Yeah. That's ahead of schedule. The Cavaliers got to the Eastern Conference Finals and lost to an historic champion. Yeah, they got swept, but it's not like they failed. People act like they were horrible. They got to the conference finals. That's good. And if you add LeBron, Donovan Mitchell, I do think is a really, really good player. I don't know if he can be the number one on a championship team yet, clearly, but maybe LeBron helps him get there. So basketball wise, I do think Cleveland is more intriguing than people are giving them credit, especially in a wide open Eastern Conference. But I do get your point of it's almost like, George, I mean, it wasn't the last year that LeBron won a title, but it almost would be like if John Elway retired after the back-to-back Super Bowls with Denver, finally got those 2 rings, would sit out a year or two, and then somehow go back and try to do Denver again in the year 2000 or 2001. You'd be sitting there saying, no, John, you ended it the best way possible already, and you might want to play, but you can't do it better. Leave it go and be retired. I don't know how LeBron could end his Cleveland chapter and his story there any better than after the 3-1 comeback, the 4 finals in a row. Yeah, the only one won. He was undermanned in the others. I mean, the only thing here, I'll give you this, George, if I'm going to be in his mind, which is, who knows? Nobody knows in his mind, even Shams. But if I'm going to get in LeBron's mind, here could be his thinking to counter what you're saying. If Rich Paul would do the George Gerbo in their conversations of, you can't end it better in Cleveland. You already won there. That 1 title is good enough for 10 for that city. Just don't do Cleveland again. Get the statue when you retire. Here's my counter. We would have won more if KD didn't go to Golden State. We would have won more if KD didn't go to Golden State. I got screwed out of it being more than it was. They were just in the conference finals. Donovan Mitchell is a perennial all-star. I could help them get to the Hall of Fame. Even if I don't win a title there, Cleveland's still going to love me because I already won 1 championship. There's no pressure to do it again. As long as we get to the playoffs and make a little bit of a run and match what we did, it won't be on my back. So how can I be hated there? I'll be loved. We'll still be a good team in a wide open conference. I should have won more. KD going to Golden State screwed me out of those. I want to do Cleveland again. Like, that would be the LeBron thinking if he really wants to do Cleveland one last time. Start it where end it where you started. You're from Akron. It's not even like you just played there in the NBA. You're from the region. That would be the thinking, but I don't know. And here, I guess, is my last part of this. I alluded to earlier, but we got to bring up.
Yeah.
And Cleveland fans. I know Cleveland fans. They're the loudest and the most vocal on this on social media. They're getting emotional again. It feels like it's 2010 all over again if you get on into a Cleveland X or anywhere in Cleveland fan social media. Rank me, George, Cleveland fans' angst if he picks a team other than them, meaning out of the bucket we talked about, if he would call them and say, I ended it right, please retire my jersey and do the statue. No disrespect. I'm not going back there. Cleveland fans, what's the order of they're going to not like it, but going to respect him still to they may consider burning a jersey and this will ruin the 2016 title? Like, is there a level there?
Yeah. To your point, the Golden State one is probably the worst outcome if you're a Cavaliers fan.
Because they weirdly feel like they're Lakers Celtics with them, and I don't think they are. But
even though like the teams haven't really clashed since that heyday in the late 2010s and everything, the second one would be Miami again. That is a conference opponent. That is a team that would come to Cleveland, and a team that would potentially see in the playoffs. Once again. So that would be a little more, because those years that the Cavs were rebuilding, they didn't play Miami in the playoffs, right? So now you could have
they're good. They're going to be a playoff team regardless, right?
A good Cleveland team that's a playoff team, and then here perhaps getting Miami and him having to play in Cleveland as a member of Miami in a playoff situation. So
and then I guess forgetting Denver and Minnesota, the next one got to be if he's trying to break a drought with Philadelphia in the same conference as well, that would probably sting you a little
just
bit
people's
too.
Normal. If you're from an East Coast city, people's normal hate to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the Cavs and Sixers have a rivalry, but you could kind of see one maybe with possible playoff opponents and playoff matchups and things like that. Now, I mean, I really believe that if he does not go back to Cleveland, that maybe not the majority, but there will be a reaction of viral nature that will have to be covered that I think LeBron might even be surprised by from Cleveland fans. Like, do you agree with that thinking of LeBron doesn't want to be a heel? I think we both know he doesn't want to end as a heel. He does care about what people think of him, which is why he went back to Cleveland in the first place and put up with Dan Gilbert. And I do think there might be a small, loud minority that if he goes to Golden State, which is the only place this will happen with, but if he goes to Golden State, there will be a reaction that I think will piss LeBron off. I think there will be that may require your phrasing. I think if he goes to Golden State, he is going to require a period of atonement that this statue is going to have years separated. Like, I'm being serious. I think that if he goes to Golden State, especially if he wins a title there, I think he will not be able to do the statue next year. Cleveland's going to be in their feelings a little bit.
Yeah.
Because as you said, they think they're a weird rival because of the finals.
And heck, Pat Riley was in his feelings about.
Yeah, and he just won 2 titles, and he's still in his feelings. Yeah, right.
Dwayne Wade, specifically about Wade, who kind of like chased a bunch of different, playing in Chicago and whatever, going and being a part owner, although in some limited capacity, out west, so out in Utah. So and then finally now you did the statue thing, and then unfortunately the statue kind of like looks a little goofy in the face.
It's not really. No, it doesn't
but
look good. That's one of the worst
owners can be like that, right? Dan Gilbert's, more.
Yeah.
Advanced has had some health problems and things like that in recent years. So maybe less from Dan Gilbert, but from the fan base. Yeah. The way you describe it, I can see some of that being an issue.
Do you think LeBron would in any way factor that into his decision that he does not? I don't think he wants to end as a heel. I think he would in Golden State.
Only if we're talking about the legacy piece of it.
I think he cares about it, though. He won't admit this. I think he cares about that.
He won't admit it. I think he cares about it. It's like, can I go to Miami and like kind of rectify that situation?
He has said publicly he was surprised on how really venom he got when he went to Miami, even after the decision, and how he knew Cleveland would be upset. But he got batteries thrown at him in the middle of a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know if a battery is getting thrown at him again because he did win them a title, but I don't think LeBron wants to end his career where Gilbert's going to have to call him and say, we need a year off because we're pissed at you. I don't think he wants that end that way. And I do wonder if he would go back to Cleveland almost as a peer pressuring to not have the stupid atonement. If he's going to basically say, I probably won't win a title at any of these places. Cleveland is probably the most immature in their feelings out of this whole group. I'll just freaking go 1 year there so you can shut up about this. Yeah. Like, I wonder if that's all in his brain at all too. Because the Golden State thing would be really cool with him and Steph on the court. I do think there would be some Cleveland fans that would always hold that against him a little bit. I mean, I don't think they'd like it. I mean, it's a little different because he did win the 2016 title, but I mean, George, it would be like if Derek Jeter in his last year of his farewell tour said, I'm friends with David Ortiz and it'd be cool to play with the Red Sox for one more year. I think Yankee fans would say, yeah, you won some titles and you were a legend with us, but no, that sucks. Don't do that. Like, that's not going to work. Like, I don't know. Or like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson have admitted that they got to be friends throughout their career. If Magic Johnson, when he left for HIV and then came back a few years later, if the Celtics called him and they were the only team that offered him and he played there, you don't think some Laker fans would be like, I don't think so. Like, yeah. I don't know. I feel like that's a little bit where we are. And maybe I'm getting this, just from people I know personally on social media, but I think LeBron is I do think he's underestimating the reaction that would exist from Cleveland fans if he went to Golden State. They won't like Miami or Philly. I do not think anyone would burn a jersey for Miami or Philly. I do think there might be an idiot that may burn something for a Golden State. It will be an idiot reaction, sure. But I don't think it's being covered enough. Like, I think you got to put yourself in the mindset of the lowest person there. Like, I think that's what we're talking about here. I think there's a chance. But before our break and as we fully transition, usually whatever George says will not come to be. So do you have LeBron's next team? Will you be, if you had to predict this and put money down on DraftKings, where are you going?
I talked myself into Miami. I think there's a chance
for sure.
To having, if it was pre-Giannis, no. I think Giannis is a precursor to that. He gets to play with a guy of that in the same way that he, unbeknownst to him,
would have been hard to predict Giannis, so that's really lucky then.
In the same way he got the chance to play with Luka, but also weird because like Mavs and all that type of stuff, right? And the trade and AD and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Philadelphia offers that to a smaller tangential. I'll put Philadelphia second, actually, even ahead of Cleveland. And then I'll put Cleveland third. Golden State is almost just like him playing with Steph, right? And it will put butts in the seats for games, the games that they actually play together and aren't load managed. But in terms of like it actually be like, okay, Golden State's 6 in the West now, right? They're still not a contending team for the title. If you put them on Miami kind of elevates themselves into a higher conversation that they, with caveat being they need to find people that are actually going to shoot the basketball, could be a contender for a title. If he's on Philadelphia,
they definitely are a contender
for the title.
100%. You could argue the favorite. I think they might even be the Vegas favorite.
And I think that with all due respect to Cleveland and the people that I mentioned on Cleveland, like it's, if you're at this stage in your career and you're not Alexander Ovechkin, who's coming back for another year with the Caps and isn't going to go seek a ring or a cup somewhere. If you're LeBron and you have this freedom, you want to go to the place to maximize what you've got left. And I think Philadelphia or Miami probably does that. And Miami, to me, has got the more intriguing storylines of kind of rectifying that thing. We have a place that, from all accounts that he did love. It's just like, of course, it got, soap opera-y at the end, as it does sometimes. So if he can go back to Miami, Pat Riley, one final ride to possibly become a champion general manager again in this league with the same coach who he kind of helped usher in and bring into the league, I think Miami offers for me the most compelling storyline and destination.
Yeah. And I mean, really, you'd be giving Pat Riley his third ring from you. All the rings Pat Riley has, how many players did he win 3 with? Magic Johnson would be, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar would be the only other one. I guess Dwayne Wade won 3 if he kind of 6. Yeah, Wayne. Title. So that would put him in a different group. That put him in a different class than even other great players that played there. Yeah. I would say if I am predicting right now, and I think Philadelphia would absolutely be the favorite on the court.
Yeah,
it would. Golden State would be a fun story. He would end as the heel. I don't think he wants to end as the heel. I believe that LeBron. Maybe he's already made up his mind as we're talking, but I believe the final 2 is Cleveland and Miami, is the 2 teams he played for. And if I had to bet money, I kind of think, because if you would ask me almost even a couple hours ago, I was almost saying Miami. I kind of weirdly think it might just be Cleveland, and this might be much ado about nothing. I even said this on this show about a year ago that watch him go back to Cleveland and end it. So I'm gonna go Cleveland to be different than you. I wouldn't be surprised with Miami at all, though. I think Miami and Cleveland are almost tied. I could see if I'm LeBron that I already finished the story in Cleveland, even though it's one less title, but I finished it there, the best I could finish it there. Go to Miami, finish it there. I mean, George, you can make an argument that he loved Miami so much that if Dwayne Wade was healthier, because he got hurt so much towards the end, and say Gilbert and the fans weren't so bitter and pissed in Cleveland. Like he admitted this. He went back to Cleveland because he felt like he owed them winning that title. If he felt like they were handling it better, he might have just stayed in Miami and clipped up titles in Miami. He almost felt like he owed Cleveland to go back there. So it's not like he really wanted to leave Miami or hated Miami. It's just they were no longer going to be as elite. Chris Bosh had his issues with blood clots. Like that was running out, even though it was a short thing for 4 years. I could see Miami for sure. It's Cleveland and Miami in almost a tie for me in a weird push for a boring answer. I could see either one. I think Philadelphia is a long shot behind those two. I don't think Golden State's happening, even though it'd be an interesting story. And Minnesota and Denver just aren't even legit to me. But I could see either Cleveland or Miami, and because God just wants it this way, they got to meet in the postseason. If it's either one of them, they got to get somehow a playoff matchup with LeBron back there. And I'll give this to you, though. I don't think LeBron wins another championship with any of these teams. I think he retires with 4. I don't predict any of these teams winning a title. Maybe going to the finals, but I don't think, even with Philly, I don't think anything's a guarantee. He could get hurt in the middle. I mean, Father Time is undefeated here. You're 24, 42 years old. I just don't see it, but Cleveland or Miami for me. And then, George, after our break here, we have to talk about something that I feel like you poo-pooed as a legit topic as recent as a year ago.
The baseball thing?
No, Steve Yzerman.
Oh, no,
not recently. I said a year ago, because a year ago you poo-pooed that there ever could be a parting of ways because he's God.
I don't even think. No, you said a year is what threw me off. I think it was like 2 months ago.
Well, we talked about it recently, but you were more willing to see that he wasn't doing well. I'm talking about a year ago.
But then they crapped the bed after the Olympics. What do you want?
I know. Well, I understand, but I even said a year ago he had to go if they didn't make the playoffs.
Nobody could have predicted Steve Yzerman or not that they would crap the bed after the Olympics with somebody who won a gold medal.
I understand it was an historic collapse.
It was a historic collapse.
Yes, I understand, but we're talking a year ago. You gave me even the Mario Lemieux comparison that you're just like dug in. If you're the Red Wings, you can never tell Yzerman to get out of town. He's Yzerman.
If they made the well, we're going to get to this. If they made the playoffs, he'd still be there, in my opinion.
Oh, I am sure that's the case, but I don't. Larkin wouldn't want out if they made the playoffs.
Exactly,
if they would have made the playoffs, we wouldn't even be discussing here in the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show. Alternate universe, if they could have freaking won 3 more games or something ridiculous.
Whole bunch of alternate time stone scenarios coming up about the Detroit Red Wings and baseball after we take the short time out here on the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show. Welcome back inside the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show. George the Howitzer Gerbo.
Mike the Buzz-saw Asti. Smoky outside still, but I am sipping on pineapple juice. So I am full vigor. I did have to recover from bronchitis a few weeks ago. Yeah, bronchitis in the summer. It was very, very annoying. You can imagine the anger that I felt, and I will blame my toddler. Bronchitis in the summer. Yeah, she inflicted me with bronchitis in the summer. It was pretty rough. I chugged pineapple juice. It didn't work then. It's working for me now, though. So I am full vigor to discuss Steve Yzerman, the Detroit Red Wings, parting ways. Yzerman goes upstairs. He's not gone, but he's no longer the president of hockey operations or the general manager. He's no longer in charge of the roster. And Steve Yzerman's 7-year reign as the executive in charge of the Detroit Red Wings, the franchise that he put back on the historic map as it was an historic franchise that was in the midst of a dark period before he got there. Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players of all time, won 3 cups as a player. And then not even one playoff appearance in his 7 years. The drought now goes 10 years in a row. And George, I've been arguing with people on social media all day. This is the worst stretch in franchise history. Yes, they were very, very bad with Yzerman in the 80s before they got good in the 90s and even before Stevie Y. This is the very first time in franchise history, 10 years in a row, they did not make the playoffs. They have never been in at Little Caesars Arena. The Pistons have got there, but not the Red Wings. 7 years with Yzerman in charge. And this is Yzerman who built the Tampa Bay Lightning dynasty as an executive and could not make any move, just very gun-shy, very conservative in terms of his mentality and strategy with Detroit. Multiple collapses. He no longer, though, in the middle of July, is now no longer the general manager. After Larkin requests out, and they basically have no real, looks like, even flirtation with moving him because of what he wants, the teams he wants to go to, and they don't want to do a futures deal. And yet he's now no longer there. So,
and with how much parity there's been in the league,
and they still couldn't budge
so
through.
Many different teams do it, right?
And as bad as they were at the beginning of the rebuild, we used to joke that the league's going to try to conspire to get them the first overall pick. They never got a lottery pick. They never were benefiting from the draft. None of the late round picks worked. Larkin was the best player, but doesn't feel like really should be the best player on a team that goes far. They couldn't even freaking get in the playoffs again in those 7 years or 10 years, including even time before Yzerman. So before, all of that's part of this, but are you at all surprised that we get Yzerman stepping away, but in a decision that is in conjunction with Chris Ilitch, who's now running the ship, in the middle of July after the Larkin request, not at the end of the season in which Yzerman did a press conference, and not after the draft, not before the draft. Yzerman did the draft press conference in which he talked about all of this. And all of those pressers, he made it very clear that he's making moves, he's thinking about things, he's in charge still. He never gave any inclination that he was willingly going to leave or they were going to fire him, even if people said they should. Are you surprised, before we get into it all, that somehow, regardless of whose decision this is, that we are here mid-July? And what do you think got us here? Because there are some conspiracy theorists out there on how we are here in mid-July.
We love a good conspiracy theory. Yes. The timing is awful.
Yeah.
Everybody's filled these other roles already. We saw the Toronto thing, as much as we mocked and talked about that, but they
probably didn't want him, but yes.
The Preds filled their role. Yeah. Pittsburgh has got a guy that Kyle Dubas just brought in from Toronto to replace a guy that went to Nashville.
What if they fired Yzerman 3 years ago? You think Dubas might have wanted to go to Detroit? Like they had the job could have been attractive years ago, but
as Mike mentions, instead of being the general manager, executive vice president, senior advisor to Chris Ilitch, who's the Wings CEO.
Yeah, you can't get rid of him. Can't get rid of him. He's still the cockroach of the Red Wings.
Quote, Steve's lifetime of contributions to the Red Wings has meant more to this franchise than words can truly express, and I have the highest level of respect for his continued commitment to our organization. We're thankful for Steve's hard work and dedication as general manager, and are grateful knowing Steve will remain here where he belongs with the Red Wings.
Do you have the quote though from Chris Ilitch? And I'll try to find it because I tweeted it as well, about how it's not been good enough. We got to fix
clearly.
The quote he gave, a quote that he should have been saying for 7 years.
Clearly, we are not where we and our fans expect to be as an organization.
Yeah, but I mean, that has not been admitted by anybody who worked for the Red Wings the entire time. It was a lot of pussyfooting. It was a lot of pussyfooting. It was a lot of like, we're building to this. We're not yet there. We're going to get in. We're going to be better. I finally made a move. I wasn't ready to make a move before. Yzerman has been the king of pussyfooting comments and not willing. I mean, even if you hear from the media there that cover him every day, as great as he was as a player and as great as that legacy is, he did everything in his power to kind of ruin it as an executive. And Chris Ilitch, with one quote, said what Red Wing fans have been wanting to hear for a decade. The franchise knew it was not going to be good for several years because of the cap situation and where the contracts were when those players retired. Everybody knew a rebuild would occur and they'd be bad for a few years. Nobody around that I've ever talked to thinks it should be 10 years in of blowing leads and still not in the postseason. This has gone on way too long, and they should be above this as that franchise. That is what is needed to be said and finally was said.
And like especially when you look at like the Red Wings contemporaries, which will kind of like put as the original, the six basically, right? Like the Rangers have had some really bad years, right? But the Rangers also made a final, and they've also had some good years in there. Obviously, wild roller coaster with the Rangers, but there have been playoff appearances and some, decent playoff success in there. The Habs, for crying out loud, the 2020, the weird bubble season, went to the final. This season, same thing, with a guy that Yzerman helped build a thing around in Tampa, and Martin St. Louis running the ship behind the bench. So
although he didn't he was one of the guys who asked out. He asked out in Tampa. He did the Larkin thing.
I mean, if you told me or you, but like, that in the early 2010s, after them coming off of, those back-to-back Stanley Cup appearances and the title in 08 and 09, Detroit, title in 08, they'd go now a decade without being in the play.
Yeah, I would have told you, and everyone even talked about at the time, that after those years back-to-back finals against the Penguins, they were good the next year. And then once Zetterberg retired and Datsuk eventually retired, I knew there was going to probably be a 3 or 4 year period, which maybe the Penguins, when Malkin's gone and Crosby finally retires, and even though Dubas seems like he's an aggressive executive and doing a great job so far, there could be a couple years where maybe they're not a playoff team like they already had those recent years, maybe even worse than that. There were some years that people thought, okay, the Red Wings are going to be really, really bad. And part of the problem that Yzerman has even brought up, when they were really, really bad, even before he came aboard, they did not hit on a lottery pick. They got really bad luck in the lottery when they were really, really bad. And George, I mean, this is an NBA term more than anything else. It was even thought of during the finals years that once these guys retire and Lindstrom and those guys retire, they were borderline tanking for a few years, and they didn't get a lottery pick.
No.
So
Mo Seider in 2019 was a number 6 overall pick.
Yeah, but 2019, they were the last. I mean, I'm talking about 2008, 2009, and they were they had a deep run in 2010. The mid-20. I'm saying, they made the playoffs with Larkin in 2016. But so from after Larkin's rookie year, before Seider, those 3 years, they forget blowing leads. They were horrible. They were horrible for those 3 years. And I even knew from 2013 to 16, like George. You could argue the 2016 team that made it in Larkin's rookie year was surprising appearance, that it was almost like they were holding on to borrowed time. There were people arguing then they should just forget getting in the playoffs. They should just get bad and start tanking. And they were tanking for a while after that, and they were really, really bad. But they never hit on a lottery pick again. They never got the McDavid or the Draisaitl or the Nathan McKinnon was available. Colorado had some really bad years. They got McKinnon. Detroit didn't get McKinnon. If ever anybody wants to dispel the thought that the NHL is rigging the draft lottery, they would have tried to get Detroit in the playoffs once of these last 10
over
years.
San Jose.
Like they didn't get Celebrini.
With all due respect to Macklin Celebrini, like if he'd have been in Detroit, that would have been awesome.
I mean, at that point, Detroit was at least getting into close contention at that point. But you get the idea. They never benefited from a first round number 1 overall lottery pick, even when they were tanking. Yzerman got there, and I've said this a few years ago, and this is what pissed off Larkin, where he spoke out publicly. I mean, Yzerman's thinking was basically that if I can't build a team that has a legit chance to win a Stanley Cup, there's no point in making the playoffs. There's no point of a trade deadline deal. If we can't go all the way, I'm not going to mortgage anything at all, even a late round draft pick or barely any money to do anything that could rock the boat. When that is the exact opposite thinking of what any fan wanted there. Like, especially 3 years ago. If you just get in one time, George, if in the last 7 years, if they would have made 2 playoff appearances and lost in the first round a couple of times, this might not even be as dire. We're not talking about anything that you got to go on a conference finals run here. Just showing some sign of life, of contention coming, and a step in the right direction. To not even get in the playoffs at all in those 7 years, and to blow it in the spring twice. Not once, twice. And then this past year, they were in freaking first place in the damn conference in the winter and don't even make the damn playoffs in the spring. So that's how we're here, and how the tenure wasn't good enough. And honestly, anybody with any other last name would have been fired years ago. But where I was also going with the question here to lead into you, George, unlike every other year, Dylan Larkin's been there 10 years. He's the homegrown kid. He was literally at the parade when they won in 2008. He was a Red Wing fan. He grew up an Yzerman fan, ironically. He went to Michigan. He was drafted there. He's been there. He's been an all-star. He's been a gold medalist. He wasn't a playoff team, even though it's been a long time. He's been the Red Wing lifer, and he's the guy that even if he doesn't win as many titles or score as many points as everybody else, if he has one special year, the fan base may love him more than anybody else. For him to one out, it shows you he doesn't believe in the future or that Yzerman was ever going to change. But also, they've now been doing this for several months since Larkin, through his agent, publicized wanting out. We've seen Brady Tkachuk get traded, but in a futures deal with just a bunch of draft picks going to Ottawa. I've argued that I think Ottawa kind of tucked their tail between their legs and let Brady Tkachuk do whatever he wanted. Him and his dad called him and said, I'm not going to re-sign. I want to go to Florida with my brother. And they basically said, okay, whatever, we'll figure it out. They didn't even get Florida's top prospect. They didn't get any NHL talent from Florida. They were a playoff team that got in over Detroit, and they now took a step back because their captain has a different political opinion. It's ridiculous. But that deal happened. And Yzerman, in his post-draft press conference, George, if you heard it, he pretty much alluded to, I will not do that deal. He literally said, I will not do a futures deal. It has to help the current interests of the Red Wings now. But that leads me to my question here. Mm-hmm. Because he wouldn't do a futures deal, and the captain wants out, and it's impossible to really get value for a gold medalist captain in the middle of the summer, there was no other deal to be made when Larkin only wants to go to Vegas, Minnesota, and Florida. Like, he wasn't even playing ball, giving you many teams to work with. Because of all of that and the fact that this deal was clearly not going to happen, they weren't going to do it. He was going to make Larkin return as a captain who wants out, and they can't even get in the room for a meeting, is the fact that Yzerman was refusing to trade Larkin, that Larkin wanted out, that Larkin publicly didn't like Yzerman anymore. Part of this decision from the Red Wings and Ilitch and even Yzerman together, where they came together and said, we have to move on now from Yzerman, even if we weren't going to do it a month ago. Does Larkin factor into this even more so than the team not being good for 7 years? He didn't ask out 2 years ago when they collapsed. He asked out now. And do you think that, I'd tell you right now, if before this was occurring, I don't think they were trading Larkin. There was no deal out there.
No, we had that discussion that like they were just going to be like, hey, you're going to have to stuff it.
But does that get this to where this is ahead? Where Larkin tells them, I'm still going to be a malcontent. I don't like Yzerman. It almost could be, even if you're the Red Wings, where you're thinking, if we can't improve on a deal from trading him and the fans say we got to get in the playoffs, the only remedy we have is to do what he wants and fire the guy that he hates.
Well, I want to give you my butterfly unicorn rainbow in that now that he's gone, does new guy, does whoever the person.
But was this done in an effort to try to keep him? If you're Chris Ilitch, do you call him and say, what are your thoughts now?
That's a good question.
Because he doesn't, there is no trade out there. So if you're left
we talked about how much capital it would take to swing it, and then obviously those three those three specific teams.
I mean, even the deal you could do is the Ottawa type deal with 3 draft picks or whatever. But Yzerman, and at least Yzerman, has said he would not do a futures deal. A futures deal. Which, George, I will say, and I don't know where you are, if you're an historic franchise that hasn't been in 10 years and you just collapsed, I wouldn't do a futures deal either. I don't, as much as Yzerman's had a horrible 7 years.
In theory, you need those people, or the
10
years is going to turn into 16
Larkin thing is the only thing I kind of defend him on. I mean, if you went out as the captain, you got to get more than 3 teams, and I'm not trading you for draft picks. But if that's where we are, I could see eventually Chris Ilitch calling Yzerman and being like, we're not going to fire you, but this guy is not changing his mind. He wants you gone to stay.
I think
you step down.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, it's a public. If you're looking at it from Ilitch's perspective, obviously we mentioned all the things that they've not been able to do under Yzerman. Add in now what would be a public relations nightmare if you actually trade the captain, right? And so,
especially for draft picks, especially
for draft picks. And now here we go back to the Myles Garrett comparison, where Jared versus different, good player for player, and the Browns kind of like end up okay in that deal, and Garrett got to set the sack record in Cleveland.
That deal's not out there for the Red Wings, though. I don't see that deal.
That deal's not out there for the Red Wings. Especially
I mean,
with
the only deal
some
that
of these guys are getting in free agency.
The only rumor deal that Elliot Freeman brought up that maybe was a thought of if they would have done the Robertson deal when he was still talking to Dallas and didn't want, they were arguing over money and the Penguins were maybe interested and he was a restricted free agent and all of that. But then there were rumors, and the Ilitch family, despite this is what makes no sense too. They were spending to the limit before, and now there's rumors they're kind of cheap and didn't want to pay that money. Yzerman doesn't want to do that. There are rumors that Yzerman didn't want to do that deal unless Robertson would agree to a long-term deal. The same thing with why he didn't bring in Quinn Hughes, because he wanted him to agree to a long-term deal. Yzerman just doesn't get aggressive. There's no, I'm going to do something and then hope. Like, there's no Kawhi Leonard deal, like with the Raptors, where they said, okay, you're not going to sign an extension. You're really good. We're floundering. We'll bring you in and try to convince you. And if we don't convince you, at least we're a contender. They won a title and he left, and now they're bringing him back, and it's no big deal. Yzerman won't do that type of thing. He wants everything locked up and everything to be pretty. But regardless, I mean, yeah, I would imagine, George, it would be a dereliction of duty to not now call Larkin again and ask him where his head is. Yeah. Regardless of what your thought process was going in, or why Yzerman stepped down.
Tweak this a little bit. Like, it's your best opportunity to land. Yeah, you get the nice kind of soft landing for Yzerman out of there, so it doesn't look like you fired, even though Red Wings fans probably wouldn't care if he was straight up fired. At this point. But it doesn't look like you fired a franchise legend, a Stanley Cup champion, and the captain. Right. At the same time, you get to keep your current captain. And perhaps that means guys like Alex DeBrincat and some others
want
to stick around. Yeah,
exactly. I think
it's not just a Larkin. Larkin's the kind of the head of the spear, but also there's a trickle down effect with some of the other people on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, there are reports they offered Patrick Kane a deal, and Kane's people basically said, I want to have the Larkin thing finalized before I agree, which is why he hasn't signed anything out.
Yeah.
You want to have the Larkin thing finalized, George? I don't think that's going to be finalized in October, let alone right now. Yeah. So you can't be waiting for Larkin. So maybe part of this again is, this Larkin thing was never going to go down. So maybe there was a meeting with Yzerman that, hey, can you step down? Or maybe Yzerman even felt the pressure. Maybe Yzerman even thought to himself, hey, I mean, I'm losing my legacy here. I'm not going to be able to do this Larkin deal. He doesn't like me anymore. Maybe give him credit. Maybe he thought it's best for the franchise for him to step away. It was getting really toxic in the conversation around him. I don't know. I guess the other part of this, though, is, George, here in reality, regardless of why or how or any conspiracy or Larkin's involvement, Yzerman is no longer running the roster. He no longer is the GM. He's no longer head of hockey operations, even though he's still with the franchise and overseeing things. But he's not now going to be responsible for this team and trades, etc. This is still late July.
Yeah.
You mentioned this is late in the process.
Very late in the process.
However, this is the Detroit Red Wings. They have resources. They have money. They have 11 Stanley Cups. They have a myriad of Hall of Famers. They were close, even though they didn't get in, especially if you can convince Larkin. Number one, how attractive what type of job is this right now? And do they go outside, or do they promote Chris Draper, which would be an Yzerman disciple that I think the fan base would not be happy with anymore, even though they love Draper as a player. I don't think you can go down the former player road after you just failed with the greatest player of all, Steve Yzerman. Like, who comes in here? It cannot just be George or Mike. This has to be somebody with some cachet to have the Red Wings job when you're taking over for Steve Yzerman.
May I give you another former Red Wing and Brendan Shea?
Well, he is available. He is available. I almost think Yzerman has ruined the chance for him now, because you can't.
I know. Yeah, it's just like, no, we're not going to run it back with Shanny. Yeah.
But, I mean, he built some teams that were okay with Toronto. They were better than Yzerman's teams. Yeah. At least he was making the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe
a couple of names per The Athletic, guys that you've heard of as Sean Horkoff is in the organization, obviously former NHLer.
I like that better than Draper. Yeah.
Assistant GM. It managed Grand Rapids in the AHL, the Wings minor league affiliate. Who's the other? Mark Bergevin, another former player, associate general manager in Buffalo. But Buffalo just kind of broke through with them breaking through and getting into the playoffs after.
But he's associate GM. I mean, you could pluck somebody who's non-GM. I could see that.
Oh yeah. Previous, you don't necessarily ideally need the experience. It could be somebody, especially in hockey, where you can find somebody.
No, I'm saying somebody who is the associate GM or an assistant GM or whatever the label is on a current job.
Yeah,
I think the Red Wings would have the cachet to be able to.
Oh yeah. That's
guy.
what Bergevin is. Yeah,
right.
Could it be somebody that's more player oriented?
I'm assuming a current GM is not leaving his current job, but you can't discount the possibility.
It's
I mean,
Wings.
obviously, it's not a guy like Dubas wouldn't go anywhere. But I mean, is there a team with a current GM that you could, based on what Elliot Freeman's reporting, that they are actually going to cast a wide net and they want to be aggressive with this? They're the wild card part of this, George.
The season starts like in a month and a half.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Like.
Here's
the wild card.
6 weeks.
As much as Yzerman has kind of ruined the Red Wings for 7 years, his last ditch effort as an executive in the NHL could be ruining somebody else. It's very possible we could have a college football scenario here is, okay, my team and program kind of got screwed with a situation late in the game, so now I'm going to go steal somebody else's and ruin it for them. There is a 5% chance, maybe 10% chance I could see them screwing somebody else over because they take their GM or associate GM and hurt their offseason. I mean, what kind of job is the Red Wing job for you? This is 10 years of not making the playoffs. There's rumors they're cheap. Yzerman just failed for 7 years. They haven't been aggressive.
It's still the cachet.
Larkin's not a good
original six. I think hockey people should hold it in that regard, right? Like it's a legendary franchise that's kind of like missed the mark over the last 10 years now. And it shouldn't take much to just kind of like point the thing in the right direction. Again,
if you make the damn playoffs, you're God. That's all you got to do. You're not taking over for Zetterberg. Like you just got to get in.
We're in a playoff position, in a strong playoff position after the All-Star break or after the Olympic break, and gradually shed games and lost games and points, and then the Flyers surged in and took their lunch money from them. So. They were close, but
you have to feel like they're kind of close. Yeah,
it should not take much. We're in terms of competing for championships, sure, a little bit more down the pipe, but in terms of just like positioning this thing to be like, hey, we got to get there first, and then now we can, start to build this again. Yeah, I still think it's alluring, especially like the weird, Chakya.
Do you think
it's
alluring enough
stuff that Toronto's doing? Like you don't have to worry about them. Everybody thinks that's going to fail. So,
but is it now? If this was 10 years ago, this would be a slam dunk, easy answer. Yes, people would leave their job in a moment for the Red Wings. Is this still alluring enough that if you are a current existing,
no, I don't think they're going to get a current GM to leave a current GM job.
I said GM or associate GM, meaning if you have a job. Doesn't have to be the GM. It could be.
Does Jim Rutherford want to come and do it again for like the 5th different franchise? Like there could be an outside chance that somebody like that. Ron Francis just came to Pittsburgh as an advisor. He was GM Carolina, GM Seattle, didn't work out so well. Is it a guy like that who used to be? I don't think you're going to get a guy who's currently in one of these 32 positions to come to leave their position and come to Detroit. 31 positions.
Now, I agree in July, but what if this was April?
It's a different story in April. Yes,
yeah, because they haven't been good for 10 years, but there is something different about doing it with the Red Wings versus doing it with San Jose.
100%.
I could see if this was April, you could have a GM. And again, I didn't just say GM, an associate GM who has a current job.
This would have needed.
I could see wanting to leave.
This should have been for them. July. I know. I'll respect wide net, but like for this to have been a proper process, they should have started in April while the playoffs were still going on.
But that's why there's a conspiracy.
Draft boards are already down the pike. You're already, we're already working toward who's going to pick who. Draft lotteries in the middle of the playoffs, like all that type of stuff. So now
you're right, but you answered why this is a conspiracy. The reason why I believe that this is Larkin influenced is if they just wanted to move on from Yzerman, like I wanted to move on from Yzerman, they would have done it in April.
Yeah.
They didn't want to move. Chris Ilitch and Yzerman are personally friends. Mike Ilitch said he was a son of his. They didn't, no, it's serious. They did not want to do this in the spring. And I feel like they're forced to do this because Yzerman was never going to trade Larkin and Larkin was never going to play for Yzerman.
And
there was no fix.
And they didn't have an Ilitch and co didn't have an inkling that he was just going to go up and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. Trade me to one of these 3 teams.
Yeah, right? and this could even be Yzerman sick of this shit too. So all of this wasn't the case months ago. I think a lot of this has come to a head now, which is, again, I think part of this is Larkin and the whole summer and all of this now. You can't really cast a wide net. But George, as much as I will say this, as much as you threw out the idea of a former, older, already accomplished GM because I would obviously have not have liked that in May or whatever. You already done it with Yzerman. You need a younger guy. You got to do a Dubas thing, build it up the right way, have a guy that can be there. When Ken Holland took over, he was an assistant. Then he took over. He was really, really young. He then became the guy for years and years and years and built a Hall of Fame legend. That's what you want to do. That's the ideal thing. You don't want to have to hire a GM every year. But George, in late July or August, if you're hiring an executive and put yourself in a Red Wings fan position and Yzerman is no longer there and you have pressure to try to get in the playoffs, if it literally is Jim Rutherford on an agreement of only being 2 years, but he'll get aggressive.
Jim Rutherford freaking love that.
Right. Or I think he would definitely do it if they called him and said 2 years, trade some draft picks, F them picks, and go ahead and let's try to win a Red Wing Cup. I think he would absolutely do it.
Oh, he'd freaking love it. Yeah.
Or even Ron Francis came back to Pittsburgh and he's not going to ever be the GM there, obviously. If they would call him and say, you can be our GM, and he then calls Lemieux and says, I want to be the GM again. Can I do that for a year or two and then come back to Pittsburgh? But it won't be a long-term thing. If you're from the Red Wing perspective, regardless of reality, because he's probably not moving now, I could actually see that being like, if as a Red Wing fan, I could actually see that being okay. This is middle of July. If you get a guy that's older, like that's better than any of the options of having some just ascending Chris Draper. Like I would take Ron Francis or Jim Rutherford, I think would be a gigantic win in July. Like I think of either one of them. I don't know who else. I do not like Brendan Shanahan. I could see that being an easy hire. He would obviously do it. I do not like that. Here's what's crazy. If you revert back to 8 years ago, I would have rather had Shanahan than in retrospect, Shanahan's had a nice run with Toronto. You could argue he got a raw deal there. And I know Yzerman had success with Tampa Bay, but if we knew what was going to happen, you'd rather have Shanny then, but I just can't see it now. I mean, for another random thing of a guy that talks a lot that's been rumored to maybe want an executive job, Chris Chelios, former Red Wing. I don't know if I'd like that. I think Yzerman stained the former players. Like I can't see it as being exciting.
And Yzerman's experience in Toronto, though somewhat more successful than
Shanahan's,
or Shanahan's experience in Toronto, though somewhat more successful than Yzerman's in that front office. Still, it's just kind of like that.
Yeah, they were at least getting in the playoffs, but it wasn't anything
they're at least
special.
Getting in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. But separate from who they're going to hire, because we'd be throwing more darts than even the LeBron decision. Do you now think Dylan Larkin starts the season on Detroit, or does the new guy even come in? Because even if it's Jim Rutherford, does someone come in there and say, there you have to imagine, even if it's Rutherford, the very first order of business is a meeting with Dylan Larkin behind closed doors. What is your thinking? What if Larkin still says, I'm sorry, I'm done. I gave you.
I think he got his desired. I mean, it'd be interesting to hear from Dylan Larkin when we get closer to the season. I think he got his desired result.
I don't think we're going to hear from this man until the first presser at media day for the Red Wings.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like when camp opens, so September or whatever. But
yeah, he is not.
No, I think he kind of got his desired result here. Just like, listen, I respect this. I'm from here. But we can't just keep plodding down this. It's kind of like inverse Connor McDavid, right? Except the problem's not the coach, it's the management. And I believe that like this was, if the result has changed, whether it was for him in terms of location or, your location changing in the way it's being run, then I think that's a good thing for Larkin. And this perhaps does open it up to him even more so staying than my prediction before, where, Detroit's got their hands tied and they can't trade him. So you're just stuck here. Now it's like, okay, maybe it's a new day. Maybe the situation's a little bit better.
Depends on who comes in. I think it matters on who comes in. Somebody with some cachet, even if they're older for only a couple of years, would obviously be better. If you're doing Larkin, anybody but Yzerman probably would be better. Clearly that didn't work. I mean, just imagine if you were George, if I don't know, if somehow you were actually a professional athlete and you somehow got to play for the Packers and Reggie White was your executive, and then you realize, man, the guy that I grew up idolizing is horrendous at the job of building a roster. Like, this had to be an emotional thing for Larkin to get to the point of asking out. I'm sure he didn't want to get to the point. He literally grew up idolizing Yzerman and then had to sit there and eventually say, you're the opposite of what's going to lead me to winning. And I'm 30 years old now. He's experienced winning on the Olympic stage. It's much more fun than missing the playoffs year after year. So who knows? But I wouldn't have predicted Yzerman gone in July. I would have thought if this was going to happen, it'd be more May or June. And now I do wonder what the hell happens and who the hell comes in there. There is a lot of cachet with that job still. And the next guy that wins there, the next cup that's won there, is going to now be a much bigger deal than the other ones. I mean, it is an attractive job in that sense, that if you can come in there and do it, but you got to somehow convince Larkin. And even if you don't convince Larkin, I wouldn't be against having the hard conversation. Like if you're Rutherford, at least if you're a veteran or whoever, and Larkin says, I still want to leave, I would say, you know what? I want a lot of things in life. You have 4 more years on this contract. I got a lot of offers coming to me about 3 draft picks. You better find a way to get some NHL players on this roster. And if it's you in collusion and all your personal text messages, better get me a better trade that one, because I'm not like, I wouldn't trade him for just the Brady Tkachuk deal. I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So
we'll
see. I don't know a better deal.
It cannot just be, you're not rebuilding. You're kind of down the line here. It needs to be some tangible.
Well, you didn't think Ottawa was rebuilding, and they decided to rebuild.
Yeah.
They decided to rebuild because they got a couple phone calls and a guy's political opinion.
Yeah.
That's literally what happened. But I don't think Detroit cares about that. It's just they need to find a way to have this mend here. But I guess as we wrap up this the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show on a couple of decisions that were made by some legendary players in LeBron James and Steve Yzerman, we did just come off of Major League Baseball's All-Star festivities, home run derby, won by a player that made more money winning the derby than his current salary in Jordan Walker, the first Cardinal to win. Not McGuire, not Pujols. It goes to Jordan Walker. You don't get a win from Harper or Kyle Schwarber as hometown guys for the Phillies. I did bet on Schwarber and did not win. But nonetheless, Jordan Walker gets the victory there at the end of the day. Then you get the All-Star game, one of the worst ones to watch ever, with a 4-0 victory.
American League mowed them down with strikeouts.
For the American League, the MVP ends up with an RBI in the first inning, for crying out loud. Like, I mean, there was nothing else going on after that. Skeens doesn't pitch, preserves himself. Maybe if they would have added some Pirates and one of the best offenses in the league, then actually would have put something together. But I'll digress. But really what I want to talk about here, separate from all the baseball that maybe we'll get into on a future show, there were also some comments made by the interim director of the MLB PA in Bruce Meyer, still interim, Rob Manfred, and even some players have made some comments recently about where we are CBA-wise. And George, I will just say, and then give you the floor here, I don't know how anybody hears what these guys have to say and does not get pessimistic about playing baseball in 2027, because they are very dug in to their thoughts to the point of even laughing off going in the other direction.
Yeah.
I mean, Bruce Meyer literally said a salary cap is bad for the fans. And then Rob Manfred literally said, we have to have a salary cap and revenue sharing is not enough. They are a crater away, and we're not that far away from needing to get a season together, even though we got a schedule release for 2027.
It's interesting to see this league and its owners, after so many years of resistance, that now, when the sport has kind of finally...
Now the owners, at least. The owners years ago in our childhood, they never wanted a cap. Even the
owners never wanted the cap. Now suddenly we want a salary cap. And does it probably end up, looking like a hybrid E type of thing that that basketball does? Probably.
That's a strict.
The cart's kind of out. The horse has left the barn when we've got the like Ohtani's deal, for example, that's multiple decades long, and it's all the money's backloaded. Like, so.
I mean, George, Bryce Harper has literally said on Bussin' with the Boys that he's willing to go to court to get his full contract and does not want to be forced to change teams to get it. How can you work like that? I don't know, but I don't even understand. To be honest with you, and I'm not a lawyer here, I would think he would have a legal leg to stand on. 2 sides agreed to a deal. You can't void a deal in the middle of it if both sides don't want to void it. What are you going to do if you put a cap in there? Void Bryce Harper's contract? You can't do that. You have to grandfather some of these deals.
I was about to say, it's going to have to be this weird thing where everybody who signs after X date. Yeah.
But then the team's way over the cap, but you're going to have to just forget about it.
I mean,
I don't even know if I think there's going to be a cap, but I'm just saying that that's what the owners want. I don't know how all this works. You can bring up the NBA. Their rules are very, very strict. There's aprons, there's draft pick penalties if you go over the cap. You got luxury tax nobody wants to pay into unless you're a title team. I don't see them getting there right away. The comparison maybe could be what the NHL did in the early 2000s. They did lost some games, and they then got a relatively soft cap that still allowed the rich teams to not have to lose players. And now it gets into full parity and a full-on legit cap a decade or so ago. But I mean, in 2006 or so, that the way the NHL worked, I mean, teams that had high salaries barely even had to tinker with anything. I could maybe see that. And if you have a cap, you need a floor. But I don't know if I think a cap's happening. I mean, the players are dug in as much as you're saying the owners are. Are you going to have Bryce Harper sitting there at the Supreme Court in March to argue about his contract if they got a salary cap? You laugh it off, but we've seen crazier things happen, and he basically said he'll go to court. You laugh it off, and we're going to be talking about it. Like,
I hate to like defend, wildly rampant salaries that have happened in Major League Baseball. The crazy thing is like we're looking. Teams have done not to Moneyball, not to say it's like the Moneyballization, however you want to pronounce that, of the game, but like we just Toronto has spent the money and Toronto gets there, right? And so we see what the Dodgers have done. And they've spent the money.
Yeah, it's two big markets.
It hasn't worked for the Mets, obviously.
Sure.
The Yankees have made the playoffs, but they've not gotten back to. They were still chasing 2009, right?
They were in the World Series against the Dodgers, but they didn't.
Yeah. We're still chasing 2009 for winning a title for the most storied champion in all of Major League
Boston's
Baseball.
Been a roller coaster ride. There's either championship or they don't make the playoffs.
You talk about the Wings 10 years, and this is the worst period. This is the longest World Series championship drought for the Yankees. And
they're at least making the playoffs, though. They're at least
they're making the playoffs. Yeah. but that's what the standard is. This right, and all that other stuff we've seen. I know Chicago, big, but we've seen like the Cubs. We've seen the Brewers. We've seen the Guardians. We've seen these teams. Yeah, a lot of things have to go right.
Started to spend and are now okay, but they weren't spending for a long time.
Yeah,
there are for sure big markets that spend wrong or don't spend enough, and we've seen some small markets that are able to win, even though the others like the Pirates haven't forever. I don't think any of that means we shouldn't have a cap, though. The other leagues have a cap.
And for me, the biggest part of this, and it's funny to see like all these owners, we'll see what the actual vote looks like if and when ideally when it comes here, because the CBA is expiring. And the expectation is that the owners will vote to lock out the players. The biggest thing for me that's needed to happen in this sport is the floor. And that was a big deal.
You got to have a floor if you have a cap.
That was a big deal in the NHL with then a team like the Florida Panthers, which of course now is a multiple Stanley Cup champion, but the Panthers notoriously in the day weren't spending, enough money. Right. And now we've long heard about the A's, and the A's owner's cheap and they're moving in a new stadium in Vegas that's publicly funded and everything. We'll see if that, how that goes when they actually get there. The Pirates, we know everything about Bob Nutting and how that's gone over the last.
Yeah, they had a great offseason this year and they're okay, but for years and years they didn't spend. Right.
The Marlins, same thing. Where the Marlins have done probably a better job developing players, and then they, like clockwork, will then end up trading them or selling them to someone. It's about getting those bottom teams to spend to an actual higher floor. I think will raise the competitive balance on it and be the most important part of this thing, let alone because we've seen that you can compete with. And Toronto has spent the money because they're backed by Rogers. Rogers, big telecommunications company in Canada. It's not a small market team, but it's a team that hasn't had the pedigree or the success that like the Dodgers have had, right? And so you see them get there, right? With a lot of guys that are homegrown. Yeah, they paid the money, but some of those guys, they bring in Dylan Cease, but a lot of those guys they've managed to develop over the years.
Well, there's a difference, though, of a franchise that has money that never won because they weren't spending the money right that then figures it out versus small market winning. Like Toronto should have spent more money in the past
years ago.
So I mean, now they're spending.
And they made
Seattle Mariners. The Seattle Mariners, even with Griffey there, they were doing fire sale moves.
Yeah.
Griffey would take them to the playoffs. And then they would give up Tino Martinez on the Mariners to the Yankees in basically a fire sale type of deal in the middle of Griffey's prime. That was nuts. They were giving up players in the interest of saving money, giving them to players and teams that you just beat. Like that was nuts. I mean, that should never have occurred. And now the Mariners are trying to spend money wisely for the first time in 30 plus years. So to their credit, but it should never have been crazy in the past. The White Sox should have spent more. The Cubs should have been able to spend money better. The big markets, the Mets, the big markets that haven't spent money enough or the right way, like Seattle with Starbucks. That's not a small freaking market. They operated as a small market. George, they had Randy Johnson, Ken Griffey Jr., and Alex Rodriguez, and they were selling players every year as in the interest of money. They were losing out on free agency deals in the interest of money. So A-Rod had to leave there to go somewhere else to get more money. They should have had more money and spent more money. They could have been a big market at the time. They weren't. Now they're spending money and they went to the ALCS, but that doesn't excuse the past either. But it's also not similar to say if the Pirates would make a pennant run this year as a small market. Every other league, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL now, for decades upon decades, and it took some a lot longer than others, have some type of cap in there. The NHL's is now rising to where it's going to look to be softer. The NFL's is full-on parity. And the NBA that you mentioned is maybe the dream, but I don't think it's ever happening for Major League Baseball, is where it's a really strict cap. George, the NBA's is getting so ridiculous that Victor Wembanyama took $50 million less so that his team could keep on winning after just going to the finals. His value is sky high. That's the Victor Wembanyama taking less and saying he took less to win and keep his team together is the exact reason why the players in Major League Baseball do not want a cap. They don't want to have to take less money to win. They don't want to have to take less money because if Victor is making it, whatever Victor is making, the second best center is going to make less. So you trickle down to less money. The belief of the Major League Baseball player is, especially the stars, is not that they're really greedy, but is if the top amount is capped, everybody else makes less below. It's almost, yeah, the other leagues are dealing with that, but look at the NHL's money with the salary cap and where they were from 20 years ago. You just saw a player on an offer sheet, which is overpaying for him, and Leo Carlson, end up returning to Anaheim as they matched it for $18 million. $18 million would be a laugher for Major League Baseball stars. They would laugh and sneeze at $18 million if you're a mega star in Major League Baseball. The NHL money is not near that level, and yeah, TV deals and it's not as popular and all that's part of it, but Major League Baseball is not as popular as the NBA or NFL, but the money is so crazy because there's no cap. There's nothing maxed out. You can just do whatever. You can have a backloaded deal. You can do an 8-year contract. George, the NBA even has limits on the term. You can't even be there to place for 10 years in a row in the way the NBA works now, which is why you see trades more so than free agency. In Major League Baseball, it's just the wild, wild west of whoever has the money can spend it. And wow, as you said, a lot of big market teams that had a lot of money haven't used it the right way. And there are small market teams like the Rays and Athletics back in the day in Minnesota that have spent a little bit and have won a little bit and been competitive. The Kansas City Royals won a freaking World Series as a small market. They won 2 pennants and a World Series within the last decade and a half as a real small market. Kudos to them. They get forgotten to history in this conversation. They won a World Series while the Pirates have basically toured around and bragged and complained and Bob Mudding makes money as a business but doesn't invest in the team. All of that has sucked for the past 30 years aside from a few seasons. But the issue is if you're a big market team in Major League Baseball, you can afford to make mistakes the Pirates cannot. Like, that's the issue here. If you have Ohtani have a career-ending injury tomorrow, the Dodgers can buy somebody else, pay him off the rest of his deal, and still can be good because they have a deep team and they have tons of money, and it's infinite wallet, and it's no salary cap. If that would happen to the Pirates, you're crippled. So if you're the Pirates, you can't bid on certain players. You can't bring somebody in and have them be there for a while. You can't rely on even bidding on Skeens whenever he becomes a free agent. I still believe he's going to leave despite liking Pittsburgh. He's going to have to for money probably. And you just can't make mistakes in terms of money, whereas big markets, the Red Sox, Yankees, the Dodgers, they can make mistakes and just buy off somebody else and fix it to the next year. That's really the crux and the difference here. But I don't know. I mean, it's certainly better for Bruce Meyer said about it not being, good for fans. It's obviously good for fans to have more teams feel like they have a shot. It's good for fans in the NFL. It's good for fans in the NBA now that there's no back-to-back champions. And it's good for fans in the NHL. Like the Penguins would never have been able to do the Crosby Malkin Letang era without a salary cap. That's good for the league. To say it's not good for the league is just ridiculous. You're not telling the whole story of what I just said there, but I don't think we're getting a cap. I would think there's some concession. We get something maybe close that's like it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a real on salary cap, because I do think that even if there's a lockout and a lot of players are not Bryce Harper, they want to play games, they want to make money, they don't have infinite wealth. I think most of the players are really dug in. I don't think it's going to be a pure on cap. It's going to be something that's better than what it is now, that's closer than we've ever been before. It's not going to be like the other leagues. You're just too far knee deep into all these mega contracts the other leagues are not into. I just don't see we're getting a full-on legit cap. But do you think we're even playing 2027? I think we're going to start late. I don't see how we're starting that on time.
I don't think it's going to start on time. We had that happen the last CBA where it kind of bled into.
I don't know if we lose the whole season, but I don't think we start
March. No, late March, truncated spring training. Baseball, in announcing their schedule today, as they did, there's 100. They've backed it up as the earliest full on opening day with all the teams playing March 25th, the earliest that's ever happened. Yeah. And you've built 178 days into this schedule, which will end at the end of September, final weekend of September. And so you've got the flexibility there. God forbid if you have to crunch that down and start play a little bit later into April, which is what they did when the last CBA was finally signed, that they could do that again. So there's the possibility.
Yeah, I think we play some games. I don't think we start on time. I don't think we get a full-on legit salary cap in name, but we get something closer than we've ever been before, at least because now all the owners want it. I mean, I just don't think it's going to be like the NBA. I don't think it's going to be what they really, really want. I mean, the NBA PA has already said that they lost this last negotiation. They need to do better in the future. No kidding. And I don't know what you do with the existing contracts, but there's something that'll be grandfathered in somehow, which I think will piss people off in a way as well. But the other leagues already have something. It is not a fair system, even though, of course, I mean, I'm with you in the sense of having a salary cap does not guarantee the Pittsburgh Pirates are all of a sudden going to be this World Series contender year in and year out. That in no way guarantees that. They've been mismanaged. The owner's not have been investing what he needs to invest. There's many other problems there. You can have money and still not win. And now they'll spend to a floor, but who knows what they're going to spend. They're still not going to spend near to what the Dodgers are spending in terms of getting close to whatever cap that will exist. So it doesn't guarantee anything. People think that this salary cap is the ultimate fix or the Band-Aid. I don't believe that, but it still needs to be there to fair things up from where they are, because we are so far gone, especially with the Dodgers, who are even further ahead than everybody else was, even when it was Yankees and everybody else trying to spend in the 90s. But I mean, yeah, the Pittsburgh Pirates, they're better this year, and they had a better offseason to be better this year, finally fixing the offense, even though Skeens dissipated. But a salary cap does not immediately fix the Pittsburgh Pirates. That thinking is a bit, a fool's errand. We will see what they do, and if they even have a chance to bring Skeens back. I'm still skeptical all of that. But
I need to get you out of here on this question from Shannon Miller in the chat. The real question here, can the Mountaineers win 2 or 3 games this year?
I mean, they won 4 last year.
Presumably in football. They
win 2 or 3 games.
Yeah.
I'm sure they win 2 or 3 games, and if they do not win more than 4 or 5 or 6 games.
Mike Osti's way too early. WV Sports Now projection article.
Yeah, I mean, if they do not win more than 4, 5, 6 games, maybe even win 7 games, you got some major problems there off the money that was spent and the roster being better. Yeah, I mean, I'm not slurping the Kool-Aid here, but 2 or 3 games, sure. Yeah. 4 or 5 games, yeah. 6 games, they got to try to do that. It can't be what it was. Some of the ESPN, I saw the ESPN projection out there where they're going to basically have the same exact season they just had. They have a better roster, a more experienced team. They spent more money. If they have the exact same season as the crap they put on the field a year ago, when it was admittedly a team that didn't have the money, and Rich Rod has since said they put it together like last minute speed dating wise because they were there late and everybody got hurt. It just wasn't a good enough team. Everyone knew that. If that's the same season with a better roster, that's nuts. It can't be that. Then Rich Rod's on the hot seat. So I've said that too. But definitely got to be better. And we'll see when we do a college football.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do some more of those shows. We'll talk more of that in the future, because we would have lost if we did this past season, even though I knew West Virginia would be bad, but I thought Maryland would be a little bit better. But does Maryland and West Virginia, can they combined for 8.5?
We will, yeah.
They did not last year. They did not.
No.
They combined for 8. But can they combine? They were both 4 and 8. Can they combined? It was different ways, but they both ended up 4 friggin' and 8. West Virginia had one more Power 4 win. Well, thanks to the freaking brawl that is insane. But yeah, can we combine to cover 9 wins or 8.5 or I don't know what would be fair out of there. Try to think of that for the next college football show. Can they combine to do it? Because if West Virginia only got 4 wins again, we're having a whole different conversation. I'm willing to go on the limb that they'll win more than 4 games. Well, I have not officially previewed or polled the audience on any preview.
There we go.
For the season, even though that's happening very, very soon. But they got to be more than 4.
A reminder to find the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show wherever you get your podcasts. Search Howitzer in your favorite podcast app, Spotify, TuneIn, and more. Apple, others. Just search Howitzer Buzz-saw in your favorite podcast app. Also, a shout out to the Hyphen Podcast Group, delivering great podcasts to the people in Morgantown, West Virginia-based podcast collective that we are a part of. Check them out on hyphenpodcastgroup.com and on social.
Find us on social at Gerbo3, at Mike Asti 11, and at Howitzer Buzz-saw. And yes, you can find the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show everywhere you get your podcasts. It is in your ear on a walk, a run, whatever. Whether it be in the midst of smoke and fog, you can still enjoy the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show everywhere you get your pods. And if you're not able to find us, if you're not able to hear us, since we are all over the place still, then you're just not trying hard enough.
This
simple as that
has been another edition of the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show, where we conquer free agent destinations, front offices, and sports radio.
One day at a time.